Members, can we all take our seats, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. It's just gone 7 o'clock, so we will start this evening's meeting. Full Council, 24th of March 2026. Good evening, members of the public and the press attending the Full Council meeting. I'm Councillor Leslie Dedman, and as Chairman of the BCP Council, I'm chairing the meeting. I'm going to be supported by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Simon Bull. Now, I'll set out the housekeeping arrangements for this meeting. And please note, everybody, that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. And can I just say, on a personal level, when I go to a lot of places, people say, oh yes, I do watch it on the internet. So I'm always a bit surprised at that, but I'm very glad people do. So welcome everybody on the internet. Right, so to manage the meeting effectively, could we follow our ground rules? If you wish to speak, please indicate by pressing the button on the microphone, then wait for your microphone to turn red before speaking. Where there appears to be a consensus, right, I'll carry on, Patrick, because it's only the housekeeping. Where there appears to be a consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. Where a formal vote is required, this will be carried out via our desk equipment, and the results will be on the screens. But if a recorded vote is requested, it will still require support from a quarter of our members, and if agreed, it will still be carried out via the desk equipment. The results of recorded votes will be displayed on the screens, but they will also be included in the minutes of the meeting. Please could members indicate to me if they're leaving the meeting, but also, very importantly, sign out of your microphone by touching the screen and using the sign out option. In accordance with the Constitution, obviously I will allow for comfort breaks as appropriate. And also, please avoid leaving the meeting in a debate. Points of order raised must state the applicable constitutional provision. Thank you. This is our final full council meeting of this municipal year. And I just want to take a moment to reflect on how we've done as members. I always ask you to follow the Nolan rules. And again, can I ask that we all recommit to our standards of respect, courtesy and professionalism, which is of course in our constitution. And I just want to remind all of you of the importance of maintaining a constructive and considerate environment. I'm very happy for robust debate, I think we all are, but it's got to be respectful. And as you remember, we all gave our commitment to debate, not hate. So I know very well that by working together, we can ensure that this meeting and all our meetings in the next municipal year will be conducted in the manner that reflects the very, very best of our council, because we are a good council and will showcase the positive and dedicated work that all our members do. And so I thank you in advance. Right, and also, can I welcome the members of the public present in the chamber, who I can see up there. Yes, your attendance is an important part of local government, and we all support that. Can I just remind the members of the public, though, that it isn't a public meeting, it's held in public, but no member of the public has a right to speak or participate unless they've notified Democratic Services. Right, so having said all of that, we now move on to agenda item 1, which is apologies, and I'm afraid we have a lot of apologies this meeting. So Chief Executive, over to you.
Thank you, and good evening, Council. We have 18 apologies for this evening, and they are Councillor Sue Aitkenhead, Councillor Hazel Allen, Councillor Eleanor Connolly, Councillor Joe Clements, Councillor Jackie Edwards, Councillor Anne Filer, Councillor Jeff Hanna, Councillor Mark Howell, Councillor Felicity Rice, Councillor Chris Matthews, Councillor Margaret Phipps, Councillor Karen Rampton, Councillor Vanessa Ricketts, Councillor Vicky Slade, Councillor Michael Tarling, Councillor Kieran Wilson, Councillor Toby Slade, and Councillor Julie Bagwell. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I see we have two members wishing to speak. Councillor Hadley. Councillor Rigby, did you wish to?
Can we also add Councillor Patterson West to the long list, please? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, members. I'm sorry, Councillor Dove. We thought you wanted to say something and then we didn't. Oh, it's Councillor Bartlett. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yes.
looking at the wrong person.
Apologies. Yes. Is it? Are we at minutes?
Councillor,
We're not.
Councillor Bartlett.
Yes. All right.
Councillor Bartlett.
Oh, Bartlett, I do beg your pardon. Yes.
Sorry, Chair, did you give the apologies for Karen Rampton? Councillor Rampton, I beg your pardon.
with her.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. We've got through item 1. Well done. Okay, item 2, declarations of interest. Chief Executive, can you report on those, please?
Thank you. On a general point, if any member is required to make a declaration of interest, they should refer to the flow chart that's set out on the agenda for guidance. And earlier this evening, members were written to by the monitoring officer, and members are reminded that dispensations have been granted to all BCP councillors in respect of those items relating to SEND, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities, to ensure all councillors are freely able to fully participate in the debate on these matters and vote later on this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, is this a declaration of interest?
Thank you, Chair. It is. I just for the avoidance of doubt, I just want to register my interest as a director of BH Live, given the an item that may involve that organisation later on in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Logan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a possible pecuniary conflict of interest with the motion proposed by Councillor Armstrong, so I will leave the chamber during that debate.
All right, thank you. Any other members with a declaration of interest? Councillor Nanova.
The same for me, this Councillor Armstrong's motion. I will leave as well for that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, item 3, confirmation of minutes. I believe we have somebody who wishes to speak on this before we confirm them. Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As already notified with regard to a small point on the minutes and also a point of constitutional issue that emanates from them. I'm sure we've all checked our minutes and there appears to be no formal record of the unagendized standards board item that you introduced, Madam Chairman, at about 10 to 12 at night, immediately prior to closing the meeting. Just to remind you, Madam Chair, that the matter related to the requirement by the Standards Board that Councillor Earl apologised to Mrs Jo Keeling and that there was a requirement also for Councillor Cox, in his own words, to apologise to any persons he may have offended. I also wish to raise the clear point of process on behalf of the public regarding this constitutional process. Members of the public were explicitly informed prior to and at the start of the meeting that no questions, statements or business would be permitted other than that strictly relating to the budget. Despite this, a standards-related matter was introduced late into the evening at a point when it's highly unlikely that members of the public, although you did touch that they were watching, Madam Chairman, probably not late, they would still have been observing proceedings at that late hour. This raises a question regarding transparency, consistency and fairness. Could you possibly explain, please, or gather advice as to why the further mentioned happened? Why did this item was introduced despite not being included on the agenda? And why was it permitted when clear instructions had been placed on all other non-budget related matters, that it was only budget related issues that could be discussed? And what consideration has been given to the perception this creates for our residents, who are expected to adhere strictly to procedural rules, while members appear able to depart from them? The handling of this matter, I believe, risks undermining public confidence in the fairness and transparency of council procedures, and I'd welcome a clear explanation if possible. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Butt. Now, I would normally refer to the monitoring officer for this, but all I can say is, obviously the meeting was run by me as per the agenda, and I think we will have to take this up outside the meeting, but I totally understand your view and the reasons for you saying it. So can I just say that? And we will get back to you after the meeting. Monitoring officer, did you wish to? That's acceptable.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, if I may. Thank you, Councillor. And the item was not recorded in the minutes. It will be amended and recorded now for that purpose. Any councillors are welcome to email me with those constitutional concerns, and I'll respond formally if that would be assistance. But thank you.
Thank you, monitoring officer, and thank you, Councillor Butt. So we go back now to, do we agree to confirm the minutes, bearing in mind what Councillor Butt has said, of the council meetings, both the 10th of February 2026 and then the budget meeting, which was 24th of February 2026. Is there any dissension from confirming these minutes by consensus? Agreed? Thank you. That's agreed. Thank you. I'm going to go on to agenda item 4. And first of all, I would like to welcome Councillor Gillian Martin, who is a current member, but she has now become a new member of the Reform Party. So, Councillor Martin, thank you. And I would also like to move on to report the death of a former Bournemouth Borough Councillor, Carol Ainge, who many of the Bournemouth Council would have known. And I think I met her a few times, but she was very much before my time. So, Leader, I believe you'd like to say a few words. And of course, anybody else who does know her would be welcome.
Just recovering from the shock. Okay, so Carol Ainge was a true champion for her local area of Charminster and Queen's Park and served as local councillor from 2007 to 2015. Her rolls up your sleeves approach involved everything from cleaning graffiti to exposing poor behaviour in public life. It might not be a coincidence that Private Eye's Rotten Boroughs had a steady stream of stories from Bournemouth during this period. She had a strong personal vote as residents recognised someone who put them as residents ahead of party politics. Being in a group of just 2 was hard work. Carol will be looking down at how her own party's fortunes have improved since her time and wishing community champions of all parties the spirit to keep fighting for their residents.
Councillor Keddy.
Thank you, Chair. Carol was my ward councillor before I moved into politics, and this is the first that I've heard about her sad passing, and I just want to offer my deepest sympathies to somebody who did inspire me as my ward councillor all of those years ago. So she will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's the best tribute we can ever give anybody, isn't it? That they inspired somebody else to do this work. Does anybody else wish to speak on that? Well, can I just extend our sympathies? Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, public issues. Right, we've got 15 minutes for this. And I can see people are waiting outside the door. Written answers will be provided if we go over the time limit. So can I call for the first speaker, who is, I haven't got the, read out by the Chief Executive. That's why they're not coming through the door. Councillor Farquhar, what is your point of order? At least I imagine it is.
I could try to bluff it with the numbers, Chair, but I wouldn't sully your ears with my attempt. It's just a point of order on an observation of a 1 minute silence, which I believe is what we normally do with the passing of a councillor. Is that not the case?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Farquhar. I think the council might well wish to rise on this occasion. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Farquhar, for that timely reminder. Back to public speaking. We have the first public question. Joel Troy Barnes has submitted a public question on antisocial behaviour, and it will be read on his behalf.
Thank you. So a public question from Joel Troy Barnes. As a resident of Southcote Road, I am regularly exposed to street-based drug use, including open crack consumption, prostitution, and associated violence outside my home, often continuing until the early hours of the morning. It seems to be progressively more violent over the last 2 months, requiring nearly nightly calls to relevant services. I would like to ask the Council, is this a known and documented issue in the Southcote Road area? And if so, what multi-agency response is currently in place? Specifically, what measures are being taken to ensure the safety of residents living in directly affected streets? And has any consideration been given to increased visible presence or patrolling during the hours when these activities are most concentrated? And that's particularly between midnight and 4 a.m. The situation feels quite lawless after the hours of 8 p.m. and only seems to be getting worse.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Earl, I believe you're going to respond as Councillor Wilson, who is the portfolio holder, is unwell.
Yes, thank you for your question. I can confirm that our public protection team are aware of these concerns. Our antisocial behaviour team are working closely with Dorset Police on the issues that have been mentioned. Recent action includes increased use of CCTV monitoring, additional police patrols to both deter ASB and curb crawling, and tackling drug use and supply, and work with local residents and landlords to increase the reporting of concerns. We would encourage all residents to report any antisocial behaviour to our council ASB team or via the police's online platform so that we continue working together to tackle these issues.
Thank you, Leader. Next question is from Catherine Amery on short-term lets, and it's to be read out by the Chief Executive on her behalf.
Thank you. Public question from Catherine Avery. I would very much like the Council to consider the impact that short-term lets is having on the tourism industry. I have been running a bed and breakfast in Bournemouth for the last 12 years, and this is having a big impact on business for bed and breakfasts and hotels in the ward. Bed and breakfast and hotels are fully compliant. We pay thousands every year to ensure the safety of all our guests in our establishments, as well as paying business rates to BCP Council. What does need considering are the short-term lets on booking agents and the student halls selling rooms, many of which are 10 metres from local B&Bs. What is the council going to strategise in the future to prevent the sudden influx of short-term lets in the BCP ward, to prevent the smaller establishments closing? Will there be more regulations in place?
Thank you, Chief Executive, and thank you, Catherine Avery. Councillor Herrick, portfolio holder for destination, leisure and commercial operations. Can I ask you to respond?
Never quite sure where the microphone order sits. Catherine, thank you for your question. The rise of Airbnb and other short-term lets are another example of where technology and changes in supply have outstripped legislation and where local authorities need support from central government to deal with the consequences. Currently, the Council's ability to enforce against short-term lets is limited in planning terms as changes to national laws are required to do so. The current classification of C3 making no differentiation about how a home is used. There is a national registration scheme promised that is yet to come forward, and it is unclear as to whether local authorities will be resourced in addition to this to operate that register and how it might respond to those failing to register and the consequences of that. With use of private student accommodation falling as international numbers recede due to hostile immigration policies and local ones stay close to home due to rising costs, it is unsurprising that operators of student accommodation are seeking to sweat their assets as well. What I often hear is that hotel and B&B operators would like a level playing field. The Council can enforce on ASB, noise complaints and other issues where appropriate that mainly relate to the behaviour of people, but currently does not have the facility within planning laws to take action against the premises on the grounds of their existence. There will only be more regulations in place if the government provide the powers.
Thank you, Councillor Herritt. That was all the public questions for tonight. We move on to statements. Sarah Cooper has submitted a statement on SEND, again, to be read by the Chief Executive, please.
Thank you. A public statement from Sarah Cooper, and this is in relation to a motion later on this evening. I urge you to support this motion because for families like mine, SEND policy is not theoretical. It determines whether our children receive the support they need. I am the parent of 2 autistic children who attend specialist schools. Our journey through the SEND system has been long and difficult. The reason my children now have the support they need is because EHCPs provide legally enforceable rights. Without those rights, I genuinely don't know where they would be today. If I hadn't been able to challenge decisions and appeal, my children wouldn't be in the safe, supportive school they attend now. My son's mental health declined significantly when their needs weren't met and destroyed them. Being able to challenge decisions is not about conflict, it's about making sure vulnerable children do not fall through the gaps. Reform must strengthen support, not remove the legal protections that families rely on.
Thank you very much to Sarah Cooper for that statement. The next statement, Paul McCourty has submitted, a statement on SEND, and this is going to be read by Jerry McCourty. Thank you. Can you read it for us, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The underlying pressures in the SEND system need to be addressed. The current legal framework under the Children and Families Act 2014 and the Equality Act 2010 provides important legal safeguards for families that must be preserved. Reforms should prioritise early identification in schools, specialist workforce development, and individual needs-led support, not weakening existing legal protections. The core challenge is not structural design, but insufficient specialist capacity, inadequate national funding, and a lack of specialist provision outside mainstream. The government needs to implement the recommendations of its own neurodivergence task and finish group report published in February 2026.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. And Jerry, I believe you've now got your own statement on SEN. Would you like to make your own statement for us?
Thank you. If children with SEN needs lose access to legal rights and specialist support, those needs will escalate in already overstretched mainstream classrooms. Teachers will be under greater pressure to manage SEN needs without adequate funds or support. This inevitably will reduce teaching time and learning quality for all pupils. Supporting this motion does not oppose reform. Rather, it asks that reform improves the system by addressing specialist workforce capacity and sustainable SEN funding without removing the legal safeguards that protect vulnerable disabled children and their families. This will support teachers, councils and schools to deliver education effectively for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those statements. We now have a statement from Mark Elkins. Would you like to read your statement for us, please?
It's coordinator, Eastcliff and Springbourne Residents Group. The hotel industry within Eastcliff and Springbourne has been put under, excuse me. Better get the glasses out. The hotel industry within Eastcliff and Springbourne has been put under severe strain, with too many new hotels within Bournemouth approved by the planning committee, leading to overcapacity in tourist accommodation in recent decades. This has caused many existing hotels to cease trading, and this in turn is wasteful from an environmental standpoint, with emissions from the building of new hotels and in some cases demolition of existing hotels. Short-term holiday lets such as Airbnb only make the scenarios worse, causing further overcapacity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Do we have Philip Stanley Watts here for his... No, he isn't. Right. Well, I will ask the Chief Executive to read it for him.
Thank you. Statement from Philip Stanley Watts. As a father of a daughter at university, I feel the BCP Council need to get together with partners, the Health Authority and university to warn of the risks of meningitis in the light of the outbreak in Kent.
Yes, thank you, Chief Executive, and thank you, Philip, wherever you are. I think we're all very concerned about the meningitis. Now we have a public statement by Rosie Radwell. It's on short-term lets, and again, read by the Chief Executive, please.
So a public statement from Rosie Radwell. The BH Area Hospitality Association supports stronger regulation of short-term lets as the current system creates an uneven playing field. Anyone can establish an Airbnb-style property without meeting the compliance standards required of hotels and guest houses, placing legitimate operators at a clear disadvantage. At the same time, tourism demand is weak, with many properties operating at unsustainable occupancy levels, particularly outside peak months. There is also an oversupply of hotel accommodation alongside a severe housing shortage. A practical solution is to allow smaller hotels to convert into residential units with the streamlined planning approval, helping meet local housing needs while stabilising the sector. Immediate action is essential. Enforce compliance, restrict unregulated short-term let platforms, and create a council-led rental portal to ensure standards and accountability. Prolonged consultation must now give way to decisive intervention to protect businesses, communities, and housing supply. The council need to control with their own platform.
Thank you very much. And now I think this is the last statement. Rachel Filmer on SCND, and again, Chief Executive, could you read it for her?
Public statement from Rachel Filmer. Having campaigned locally and nationally on SEND, The concerns in this motion are wholly reflective of the risk of these reforms. They would disproportionately impact on the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children and those with the most complex needs. Failing children has profound consequences, not just for families and schools, but for public services. Removing rights would exacerbate the crisis in social care and other public services. The legal rights of disabled children must not be negotiable. I urge all councillors to support this motion and defend the rights of vulnerable disabled children in BCP.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive, and thank you very much, Rachel, for that. And thank you all residents for your questions and statements. They're all very, very valuable to us. Members, we now move on to recommendations from the Cabinet and other committees. We're asked to consider the recommendations at items 6 to 12 and the supplementary item at 17, which is going to be taken separately, is on the supplementary agenda. And can I highlight that some of these decisions on these issues have been taken under delegated powers by the relevant bodies and so are clearly not before the Council. Councillor Andrews, are you actually waiting to come in on item 6, Audit and Governance? Thank you. Right, thank you. Item 6, Audit and Governance Committee, 26th of February 2026, minute number 103. And it's the financial regulations, annual evolution for the financial year 2026-27. Councillor Andrews, I understand you will move the motion and you do have a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm proposing this in the absence of the Chair of Energy this evening. Our financial regulations need to be approved each year by full council. The 2026/2027 copy appears from page 55 of the agenda pack. There are a few minor adjustments and some updates. For example, it now refers to the Procurement Act that has now come into force. All the changes are highlighted in red, so it's all there for you, and you probably have had a glance of it earlier. So I'm happy to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. I know you told me who your seconder was, but I didn't write it down, so can you enlighten me? Councillor Nanavith.
Thank you. I'm happy to second this, but I won't be speaking on it as it's a straightforward matter that requires annual approval. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Do any councillors wish to speak on this minute? I have nobody on my list, so the proposer is supposed to sum up. Would you like to do that, Marcus?
To accepting it. Move to accepting it.
Yes, I think you said it all the first time round, didn't you? Right, do we have a consensus on that, please? Approved? Right, thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 7, it's Cabinet of the 4th of March 2026. 141, Children's Services Capital Strategy Report 2026 to 2029. Councillor Burton, I think you're going to move this and Councillor Moore will second. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this paper follows on from a report that went to this council actually this time last year and set out the priorities for the period of 25-26 to 27-28. This is an update to that period, 26-27 to 28-29. As always, this is quite a technical paper and looks at the funding allocations and includes the basic needs funding, which funds new school places of 0.88 million, school condition allocation of 5.88 million, which is for maintenance of the school estate, SEND high needs provision capital of 27.68 million, which is the council's high needs provision estimated for increasing the supply of special places and promoting inclusion. This paper also mentions the Section 106 contributions of just over £500,000 from developers. A total of 200 places are being created at approximately just over £19,000 per place. This is for the SEND, and substantially below the national benchmark of nearly 23,000 for SEND places in refurbished accommodation. I've mentioned before that at the end of last year, the DfE cancelled 18 special free school projects, which included one in BCP. Instead, we'll receive a per pupil capital allocation to deliver provision within existing schools. The funding received does not allow us from that funding to build new provision. We have the challenge that both are needed and that we need to work closely with education providers to provide suitable places, finding suitable specialist workforce and leadership. Any new buildings constructed as part of these schemes will be designed on the principles of net zero carbon, sustainability, reducing the emissions from maintained school estate. The risk that's mentioned here is that we don't build places for the right special needs. This is always an issue to make sure we get the right things. Remember that SEND isn't just a single destination. Every child is different and therefore has different needs. I think I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'd like to very much welcome the approach to specialist provision, which enables more children to attend school in their local communities. Clearly, it reduces journey times, and I think less time spent travelling is better for both the children and their parents. There's a summary of capital projects for specialist places in Appendix 4, and the list in Appendix 5 shows all the schools which are now providing specialist places achieved during the past 12 months or so. So that is 196 additional specialist places created and another 200 in the pipeline for 2026. And I know there's more to do, and there will always be more to do, but creating 396 new specialist places in 2 to 3 years will be a good achievement. I'm also pleased that the schools for which I'm a trustee are included in these lists. I couldn't resist that, I'm sorry. I'm happy to second this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Right, councillors, does anybody have anything to say on this, to wish to speak? Right, Councillor Burton, do you wish to finalise and sum up?
I don't really think I need to say anything else, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have consensus to approve this? Thank you. Item 8, Cabinet 4th of March 2026, minute number 143, asset disposals. Councillor Cox, I believe you're going to move the recommendation, so sorry, and Councillor Andy Martin will second. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think I won't take long on this because these proposals have been through the I get this right, the cross-party strategic asset disposal working group meeting, and was 100% recommended for approval by that committee. So I think there's nothing more to be said about it. These are assets that we need to dispose of, and therefore I would recommend it to the council to approve. So we need to approve them on an open market basis, and to be approved by the Director of Finance acting in his capacity as Corporate Property Officer in consultation with the property portfolio holder for finance, which is myself. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Andy Martin, you're going to second, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say a few words, if I may. Obviously, I want to particularly pick out Queensmead, which has been a very long-running saga, as members have been on the council for a while will know. Margaret, if Councillor Phipps were able to be here tonight, and she isn't, obviously, I'm sure she would want to say that this site, which has been quite controversial in the last few years, would be a brilliant site for family housing. I know it's got to go through planning, and we'll see what comes forward when it's sold. And I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but because of the proximity of the Twynham Primary School and Christchurch Junior Schools, this site would be great for family housing. So I just thought I'd put a marker down on behalf of Councillor Phipps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillors, who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Challoner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have circulated an amendment that I would like to propose, which is to remove the Penhill car park from this particular piece of work. And first of all, I would like to lead with some apologies as well. The item of this meeting appeared in my diary, but it did not have any explanation as to why. So I get lots of meetings appear in my diary, as do we all, and sometimes it's just bewildering as to why they might appear. So I didn't actually go to that meeting or make representation on behalf of, most importantly, the local businesses who will be affected by the sale of this car park. And I would like the opportunity to go back to that. So that's why I've sent out the amendment that I have.
I'm sorry, councillor, have you got a seconder? Well, could you put your microphone on and say it for me? Thank you. Thank you, councillor Wright. Right. So we are now discussing the amendment. Councillor, did you wish to come back in there?
It was considered in great depth, the sale of the car park. It was extremely underutilised car park, and therefore there doesn't seem to be any reason at all to keep it, and therefore it should be sold. Thank you.
Sorry, councillor Waters, thank you.
Thank you. I will be supporting the amendment here just because it isn't in my ward, but it borders my ward, and the shopping district of Penhill Avenue, they do rely on the car park to a certain degree. One of the reasons I think it has such low revenue right now is because along Catford Cliffs Road, which is right beside it, there are probably around 2,000, 3,000 free parking spaces right now. So if we are going to keep it, it might be worth looking into putting some restrictions on that road if we are going to try and make some money from it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. I, for some reason, attended that meeting. I believed I'd been invited, but I found when I got there that I wasn't actually on the committee. But I stayed for the meeting, and one of the comments I did make was specifically about the lack of ward councillor representation, particularly with regard to the car park. And I did make that point to the committee, and indeed I spoke to one of the ward councillors after to ask if they had actually been invited, because I was told that they had been invited but they weren't there. But nevertheless, I believe that the ward councillors do have a view, and they should be given the opportunity to express that view. And I think it would be a bit premature to make this decision without taking full account of the democratic representations of the people from that ward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Bartlett. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I did stop off last week on the way to committee meeting at that car park, and there was only, I think, 2 other cars that I parked there. It is very underutilised. You know, it probably costs us more running it than we get money coming in. It's not used. There's lots of on-street car parking in the vicinity. However, several, if not 8 cars appeared and clustered around me, and I thought, what's going on here? It's about sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. And then a school minibus turned up and disgorged its children. And it is utilised by local schools for a pick up and drop off. But I doubt very much whether the parents were actually paying to park there for 5 minutes. It is a large chunk of land. Over half the site is a massive mound of forest-like proportion trees. And it probably does need further scrutiny. It needs checking on many matters, TPOs and covenants and or whatever. And if the ward councillors, and obviously, as we've heard, it borders two wards, so there's probably 4 councillors involved, haven't had a chance to have their say, it may be necessary for them to have their say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Earl.
Thank you. I'd like to remind councillors about our last meeting of full council, which was the budget, and the impending £38 million that this council will need to find within the next 3 years to avoid absolute decimation in terms of our finances going forward. It is really, really important that we raise the capital that we can to put in the bank so that we can pay that debt that we will inevitably have to, of £38 million. Because this has gone through the asset disposal working group, which was cross-party, no opposition was raised at the time. And I do not believe that this council voting for this amendment will actually change the outcome in the end, because we all need to be thinking about the long-term strategic finance of this council, and it is an underutilised asset which is sitting there and which needs to be put to much better use. And the much better use is underwriting our finances so that we don't go under and we don't set this council up to fail in the next 3 years.
Thank you, Leader. I have 3 more speakers on the amendment, and then I think we must call it to a close. So, Councillor Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. So, as the chair of this cross-party working group, I thought I'd better say something. I mean, Councillor Cox is right. We did very carefully consider all of the aspects of the sale of this particular car park, and we saw the financial information that related to it. The point that Councillor Bartlett has raised, the invitation towards councillors is a relatively new development. I'm not quite sure why we haven't done it before, but we have started to do it. But because it's relatively new, I did take the opportunity to check with the 2 ward councillors after the meeting as to whether or not they had seen the invitation to attend the meeting, and Councillor Challoner was kind enough to explain what had happened. It isn't my decision about whether or not it comes back to the cross-party working group, but I just wanted to highlight that a couple of weeks after the meeting, I did get an email from Cushty Bok about the possible use of this land as a traveller site. Cushty Bok, for those who have had experience of them, have a very long history of sites which they have looked at over time, and they have this wonderful map of all the sites they've ever looked at in Dorset. And apparently in the past, this was a site that they had hoped that could be identified as a transit site. And of course, that led me to wonder whether it was possible to use it for that purpose or for the purposes that we've asked for before in terms of land for van lifers, for example. So it isn't my decision as to whether or not it comes back, but I'd be more than happy personally for us to have another look at it, because one of the other things that came out of that meeting, and I thank Councillor Kate Salmon, whose idea it was, one of the things that we wanted to do within the committee was just to check that officers are looking at these sites as they come forward. We know they are because they give us an explanation of all, the viability and what they've looked at. Can the council use it for whatever purpose? But we've established a kind of template so that we can actually see what officers have done in terms of checking the process that they've gone through to see whether or not these sites are viable for anything else. So, as I say, Chair, not my decision, but personally quite happy for it to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. I did say that I would cut this off after Councillor Butt. I'm sorry. So, Councillor Farquhar first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Perhaps I'd like to ask a question of the amendment or the proposer, but to talk to the amendment in itself, the question which strikes me as most pertinent here is why the leader quite rightly reminded the council of our duty to get as much money as we possibly can into the bank. But I'd also remind the leader and the council of our duty to the local plan and to the residents as a whole. So I don't know why it is that the leader had difficulty controlling her reaction to the mention of the word Cushty Bok, or Cushty Bok as some may pronounce it. This subject comes up repeatedly. It came up just last night at overview and scrutiny. That we have a duty to all our communities to fulfil their needs. We also have a duty to the local plan and the requirements for those of our GRT community. We have different communities evolving within our community, within our conurbation here, such as van lifers. The reaction should not be to choke back a laugh or a gasp of exclamation. That as a local authority, we have duties to actually ensure there is a local plan for the years ahead. So that's what I'd ask to be considered by the amendment and by the council here when they're thinking about supporting or not supporting this amendment. And I think Councillor Canavan makes a very good point, is that are the officers diligent enough to ensure that our duty to the local plan has more weight than our duty perceived to put money into the bank for a perceived deficit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Can I just say that I was also at the meeting when this was discussed. Cushty Bok was never mentioned, and I'm well content personally that the officers had done all the research that was necessary. I'm going to hand over to the leader to reply.
Thank you. So I'm replying on the basis that obviously I've been mentioned, and I think there was a misinterpretation of my reaction there. What I'm really concerned about is that I think you are implying that I have some issue with our Gypsy and Traveller community, which is completely unfounded, and I do not appreciate that being thrown in our direction, like it was last night actually at Overview and Scrutiny, very, very unfairly accusing this administration of having an issue with an ethnic minority. So I do not accept that. What I do want to say, though, is if you want to talk about the local plan, Councillor Farquhar, your government is imposing 3,000 homes across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. If we talk about the Poole local plan, there is no allocation for this site to be looked at for Gypsy and Traveller housing. And actually, I'm surprised Labour aren't actually talking more about the need to deliver housing, because this site is a really key location. It could deliver some fantastic housing there for people. Currently, it's underutilised as a car park, and our officers have done their due diligence in looking for options for that site, and none have been forthcoming. So I think we need to get back to what we are trying to do here, which is get residents value for money from the sites that are in our stewardship. Thank you.
Councillor Butt, can you speak to the amendment, please?
I am speaking to the amendment, Madam Chairman. I shall bring everybody back. Now, what we've heard today is we've heard about the rights of the councillors to attend a meeting. But I think we need to remind ourselves why they're there. They're there because they represent our residents. So if councillors aren't there, our residents' voices aren't there, and that is what we are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be representing our residents. Now, it may very well be that the plan that's already put forward is wonderful, and that it can go forward, and that it's the best thing since sliced bread. We don't know, do we? Because we haven't asked the residents what they think. And obviously, their thoughts and their contributions are valuable to us, are they not? Because every single one of us in this chamber represents our residents. So let's get real. And one thing I'll divert very quickly from the amendment is that if you need to save some money, Madam Chairman, Madam Leader, I suggest that you save £2 million from not invoking town councils and spending money on residents' cards. A clear £2 million to be saved in an instant. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. And I don't appreciate the noise from the other side, so let's not do that this meeting. Thank you. And can I ask now Councillor Challoner, who's the proposer, to just sum up this before we go to the vote on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I do seriously take on board the points with regards to a council budget. And I would say that there are some things that I've done that are political decisions to use up funds that could be used in other ways. But with regards to this car park in particular, I'd like to see, before we make a decision as to get rid of it, what are the actual monitoring stats? How often is this car park visited and enforced? Because in the times that I've been there, I've never seen anybody there checking tickets. So how well do we know that it's actually checked that people are utilising it? I think that's quite a valid point indeed. And one of my concerns here is the businesses that are affected here are not in my ward. The car park might be, but the businesses are not. These are hospitality businesses who are already struggling because we've got a financially inept Labour government who do nothing but punish small businesses and hospitality. And I would just like the opportunity to actually have this further explored and to talk to the disposal working group about this and to make sure these businesses' voices are heard. It's not so much the residents per se, it is very much more for those businesses, but the people then who visit them. And I think that's quite an important factor, and I really would appreciate the opportunity to do that, and I would hope that you will support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Challoner. Now, members, we've had a discussion on the amendment. So can we please go to the vote on this? And I think we need to vote with our equipment. So please let me have your votes on this amendment. Thank you, members. We're going to get the vote up now. Thank you. So, members, as you see, we have 35% of the council for Councillor Challoner's amendment, but the majority, 64%, are against. So that falls. Now, so councillors, having had that amendment, we now want any speakers on the substantive motion, and I don't know if we have any. Do we have any speakers? Councillor Challoner wants to speak on the substantive. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like each of these items to be voted on individually as to whether they're going to be disposed of or not, so that can be recorded item by item, and I think you would fully understand why. Thank you.
Excuse me, members, I've dropped my pen, which is, don't know why I really need it, but still. Thank you. So we have 3 items here. Councillor Cox, do you want to go back through them for us before we take them? We can have all of them separately then, if that's... oh, I'm sorry, the leader wants to speak. Sorry. Oh, Councillor Cox wants to speak. Thank you.
Can I suggest that we take the 2 at Queensmead and Commercial Road together, because it doesn't seem to be very controversial, and I think it might be an acclamation on that one, and then do the other one separately. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Cox. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to do that. Thank you.
Okay, recommendation B on page 135 is to approve the disposal on an open market basis of 12 to 14 Commercial Road, Queensmead Care Home and Pen Hill Car Park on terms agreed by the Finance Director. The proposal is that those first 2 properties, so that's 12 to 14 Commercial Road and Queensmead Care Home, are voted on first, potentially by consensus, and then we'll have a sort of a recorded vote on the second, on the other one, which was Pen Hill Car Park. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Cox, do you want to come back on that for some reason? No? Yes.
On that one, if I'm not mistaken, so.
Shall I ask if there is consensus then? Thank you. Members, as chairman, may I ask if there is consensus, as the Chief Executive suggests, on those 2 items other than the car park? Do we have consensus on that? Thank you. Now we go to, was it a recorded vote on the car park? Okay, right. So members, get ready to vote on the car park issue. Thank you.
Okay, the vote is open, and the vote is regarding the disposal of Pen Hill Car Park on such terms to be approved by the Director of Finance acting in his capacity as Corporate Property Officer and in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance.
I think we've all voted, have we? Yes? Aha. So we need the recording of this, Richard, don't we? Councillors, I think we've all seen this on the screen, and as you know, this will go down in the minutes. So thank you very much. I think, thank you, that disposes of that minute, that item. Can we now move on to Cabinet 4th of March, minute 152, our Place and Environment Local Transport Consolidated Funding Programme. 2026 to 27. Councillor Hadley, I think you're going to move this, and Councillor Herriott will second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid there's 4 papers that relate now to transport issues, and this first one, the next 2 follow and are part of that programme. So this is the Consolidated Transport Fund, which was previously known as the Local Transport Fund. 70% of this is maintenance, including preventative maintenance, drainage, street lighting and signals, and 30% is on improvements to the network. And that includes things like travel safety, work to manage and maintain the network, active travel and public transport improvements. The column in grey in the annex is the allocation of the Local Transport Consolidated Fund grant. But as in previous years, other related grants that we've had to support this work are also shown in the table. So those allocations are also shown. At Annex 2, there's a consolidated pie chart which highlights the proportions that are being spent on the different categories. As I mentioned, the active travel and bus grants are detailed in the next 2 papers. There will be detailed planning consultation on individual schemes as appropriate. This and the next 2 papers were discussed in detail by the Cross-Party Transport Advisory Group and were supported by that committee. Thank you.
Councillor Herriott.
Reserve my right to speak, please.
Righty-ho. Members, do we have discussion on this, please? No good putting your hand up, Councillor Bartlett. Press your button. Well, you're welcome to do both, obviously, but Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't support this paper because it advocates spending of nearly £500,000 on 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, on widespread 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. So if the leader of the council wants to save some money, why don't you save £500,000 by not wasting it on unnecessary 20-mile-an-hour speed limits? Thank you.
Councillor Earl.
I won't say that, Mike. Just in response to Councillor Bartlett, the way that this funding works is we obviously get it from government for the transport grant, and it has to be spent on transport items. It can't be spent on other things. We certainly can't be putting it into reserves. So we divvy it up to the projects that are best going to serve the community. And in fact, I think we've done a really good job at getting it to the place where it should be. So no, we cannot take money and put it into reserves and pay off the 28 million.
Sorry, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just quickly on that point, I can
completely support this, especially because of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, the allocation of £500,000, because that saves people's lives and it reduces deaths and serious injuries. And from a health and wellbeing perspective, it takes pressure off of our NHS and emergency services. So I think that is incredibly well spent money, and I'd like to support it purely because of the 20-mile-an-hour.
Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Being someone who represents a number of communities who have been asking for 20-mile-an-hour limits in their residential streets, I fully support keeping that in the system, because we have, in areas where it has been applied, we have saved a lot of lives, and you know, I think the statistics are well proven on that. But certainly there's a lot more demand than there is money to deliver. And as I say, there's quite a few residents I represent that want such schemes in their residential roads for safety reasons. So I fully support that staying in the thing.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Do we have any more speakers? Councillor Herrick, you reserved your right.
I did, Chair, thank you. I'm going to take the opportunity to say that when people are hit by vehicles, they are much less likely to die if they are hit at 20 miles an hour than 30 miles an hour. And not only is there a whole host of data out there that proves that, but simple physics kind of further explains it. And if a person dies on our network, and if we ignore the human cost, obviously, and I think we've all got a story about someone in our lives that's probably been killed in a road traffic collision at some point, that's a societal and economic cost of in excess of £1 million. So £500,000 to save some lives seems like a really good investment to me. You won't find me that generally complimentary about our government, but a multi-year settlement for transport is really welcome. But it does feel a little like giving with one hand and taking away with the other. It does allow our officers to plan and design schemes, creating a pipeline for the future. But our BCP team were also quite good at winning pots and punching above its weight. I'm also pleased we're going to be able to tackle more crossing, safer routes to schools, design places that are safer for people to get around. Every councillor will have an example of somewhere in their ward that they think needs a crossing or a road safety improvement. And I will also say, once again, for all the talk on 20 miles an hour, not a single person has ever contacted me to ask for the speed limit in their road to go up, but plenty are asking for reductions. And I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
I see Councillor Joe Salmon wants to come back in before Councillor Hadley sums up. Thank you, Councillor.
So I just wanted to speak on this because it really winds me up, because this debate, it's not about roads, it's about whether we are willing to accept basic evidence-based measures that save lives. Now, we've been here before in society. When hand washing was first introduced, you know, honestly, it was mocked. Loads of doctors really resisted it. And it was dismissed as unnecessary interference. And people who spoke against it tried to frame it as, oh, we're standing up for freedom, you know. The problem, the reason people went against hand washing is the same as they go against 20 miles an hour. It's not a lack of evidence. It's a stupid refusal to change. Today, nobody argues against hand hygiene, you know, because it's obvious and it's mad that anybody ever did. And yet here we are. I cannot believe our democracy is so poor that we have elected representatives who put forward that 20 mile an hour limits do not work when the evidence is vast, it's overwhelming. The reality is they reduce collisions, they reduce severity, and they save lives. It's important. It's ridiculous. We don't run our healthcare system on gut instinct and personal inconvenience because it would kill people, you know, and we shouldn't run our political system on that as, oh, look, opposing 20 mile an hour limits today is no different to opposing hand washing in a hospital. It's not a brave stand for freedom. It's a refusal to engage with reality that puts people at risk, and those doing so should be ashamed. It is poor behaviour.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Councillor Bartlett, you're coming back on this for some reason. Well, can you...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, the inference was clear that that comment was directed at the statement, being the only person to make that statement. So I'd like an opportunity to respond if I may.
Well, I think that is the opportunity, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But briefly.
Briefly, yes. I fully support 20-mile-an-hour speed limits around the school areas. In fact, most of our school areas do have them. But for years and years and years, I've advocated, where residents have requested it, speed calming measures in areas in my ward. They've been constantly refused over the last 11 years because of lack of data supporting any change. And all of a sudden, we have a complete reversal of the policy where everywhere is going to get 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. Where is the data supporting that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. And can I remind councillors that if you do make a sort of personal mention of somebody, then they do have the right to reply. In the end, we would all be at cross purposes across the chamber. So let's try not to do that. Councillor Hadley, would you like to sum up before we go to the vote on this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this programme is very wide-ranging, and I'm actually a bit surprised that we've homed in on a single issue that we did agree as council some time ago to look at 20-mile-an-hour in every community across the conurbation. And there is, as Councillor Salmon highlighted, an awful lot of evidence out there about the beneficial effects for not just death, but reduction of injury, and that's life-changing injuries, and particularly for children and the elderly. And I'm really surprised we're back there again. I think, you know, for me, I'd much rather we were able to go faster on that, but we had to come up with a balanced programme that actually, as I said, prioritises maintenance of the highway for all users above all else, but includes moving forwards on a whole range of schemes, including 20 mile an hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Can we go to the vote on our machines, please? Thank you. Members, have we all voted? Yes, we have. Oh, yes, clearly we have. Thank you. And as you can see, the results are on the screen. So that is carried. Now, members, I'm going to slightly change the order and go on to item 11, which again is Councillor Hadley. Minute number 154, our place and environment, local area bus grant. And then it says LABG, which I assume means local area bus grant. Thank you. 2026 to 27. Councillor Hadley, I believe it's you to move and then Councillor Brown to second. Thank you.
Yes, so we have been granted 5.64 million for 26-27. As Councillor Herrick referred to on the previous item, we have got a multi-year settlement from government, which is very welcome in terms of being able to forward plan, but it does leave us with the specified amounts that are in the paper for the next 3 years for revenue, 4 years for capital. This is consolidation from several previous grants that were made in relation to buses. One of those was about busing back better after the COVID pandemic, and the Bus Quality Partnership monies. Council asked to accept the fund and to approve implementation of the programme in Appendix 2, which has been developed in partnership with the bus companies, principally Moorbus. Appendix 1 details the previous projects under this programme, which I hope members will find helpful, and Appendix 2 details the 26-27 programme for bus service improvements. Thank you.
Councillor Brown, would you like to second?
Yes, I'm happy to second. And actually, I'd like to speak quickly now as well. I'm very much in support of this, and as was mentioned, and really welcome the sort of multi-year settlement so that we know that this funding is here for the next few years. But I really want to draw members' attention to a few of the aspects in the appendix about what's being funded from this in Appendix 2. And these are things that, you know, people have sort of raised and and mentioned to us, particularly the capital funding for Poole Bus Station, £250,000 for its refurbishment, including redecoration, CCTV and potential opening of the toilets, and there's revenue funding as well for Poole Bus Station for that. And also the fare deals, the commuter club and the £2 multi-trip bundles, I think are really, really useful to help drive bus usage. But particularly the last item of revenue funding, which
Councillor Brown, can you pause a moment while I ask Councillor Farquhar, who has sat down again, why he was standing?
Fortunately, the microphone's been a bit relocated. It was too far away. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I agree with you, and I'm not even going to say I'm the older demographic. Thank you.
But yeah, the important point, the last item on that Appendix 2, the revenue funding for concessionary fares travel during the week, for peak times for job holders. So a trial to enable disabled passengers with concessionary fares entitlement to travel before 9:30 a.m. for a £1 single fare to enable them to access employment, education and volunteering opportunities. And this shows where it's really joined up thinking. People have often mentioned about that, and as part of our adult social care fulfilled lives programme, we're looking at encouraging supported work placements for people with disabilities, and this supports that as well. So I think it's really important for those people with the concessionary fare entitlement that they can actually use those before 9:30 to get to work and college. So I think that for me is one of the biggest benefits of this local authority bus grant. But all of the items there are really helpful and really useful to drive bus patronage. And I think it's been mentioned in previous meetings about bus usage within BCP. And I just wanted to sort of correct some views that actually it's sort of declining. It's really growing and it's really successful, and there are more buses running, there are more people on the buses, there are more success story in this area because it's spread from not only the high frequency routes but actually more into the suburban areas. Actually, we've got more buses serving those areas now, and I think it's a really good news story.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say that I really like the improvements to Poole Bus Station, and the last time I was there, the work next to the sell-down car park was well underway. And if they can get the place redecorated and the toilets reopened and staffed, which I believe is in this year's budget, that will be a huge bonus and very welcome. So yes, I'm very happy to support this paper. Thank you.
Councillor Beasley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just would like to raise the issue at item 5 in Appendix 1 of capital schemes, the Westbourne bus priority, because it says in the report that it's resulted in reduced journey times for westbound buses entering the gyratory scheme at county gates. This has proved a very controversial scheme. I have seen no evidence to support the statement that's in there, and I'd very much like to see some evidence of it, because if it exists, that's fine. Please share it with us. If it doesn't exist, then please be truthful and tell us that it's supposition. And I'd like that as soon as possible, because it has, in my estimation, from my observations, it has resulted in more congestion, particularly those entering the gyratory travelling in a westward direction. So what we need is the facts rather than what we hoped might happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beasley. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to support this paper. I think it's excellent. I'd like to congratulate the administration on the magnificent progress made in this programme already. This is where investment into public transport really can make a difference. This is what helps reduces congestion. I'm sorry to hear Councillor Beasley's situation there, but it's probably an exception. I hope it is. But yeah, more of this, more money invested in public transport. That's the way to go. Thank you.
Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hadn't
I plan to speak on this, but as somebody who does get around by the bus quite a lot, I welcome this, and you know, it doesn't discriminate with buses, does it? You know, people, not everyone can use a cycle, you know, get about on a bicycle, but with buses it's universal for everyone, so I'm fully behind this. Thank you.
Do we have any more speakers on this? Right, Councillor Hadley, do you want to sum up before we go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Yes, Councillor Beattie, I can assure you, and I'm pretty sure that the figure is 52 seconds reduction in delays. So the buses have telemetry on them, and there was a trial which was actually extended because initially the bus stop and the junction were sort of seen as one element, so they had to adjust their software. But it has been monitored, and the understanding I have is that both general traffic and the buses have been sped up through the gyratory as a result of the change, which is why the change was made permanent. But I can certainly ask the officers to dig out the details for you to highlight that. Otherwise, I'm pleased that everyone's in support of this. It is an important strand of our transport. It's not for everyone, but certainly having buses available and improving and having a good partner. I was up in Salisbury just before the weekend, and they're then just launching their electric buses, and they're looking very keen to try and do that down here, which obviously would help with air quality as well as congestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, members. I'm not sure if we do have consensus on this. Looking at Councillor Beasley. No? Would you prefer to go to the vote?
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to support the paper because it is essential that we see these improvements going through, and I won't be voting against it. What I was objecting to was the lack of information and data, which Councillor Hadley has promised that he will now send me. So in that case, I will vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor. So, members, then, do we have consensus to accept this? Thank you. And I will now move on to item 12, Cabinet 4th of March 2026, minute 155, our Place and Environment BCP Council Lane Rental Scheme. Councillor Hadley again. I understand you will move this recommendation, and you have Councillor Andy Martin as the seconder.
Thank you, Chair. This is about trying to improve or reduce congestion for everybody on the highway by getting the utility companies in particular, but our own teams as well, when they're working on the key elements of the network, to work faster or to more efficiently and to reduce the time that they're on the highway. We can do that by a lane rental scheme where they pay by the day for the time that they're occupying the highway. We can only do that in the first instance by finding 10% of the overall network and identifying that and raising that. We also can only do it on an application to the Secretary of State. So this is asking Council to approve that we go to the Secretary of State to identify this as a lane rental scheme. We have consulted on it. The results of the consultation were 85% people were in favour of it. Not surprisingly, the people who were against it were the utility companies because it adds to their costs. This is not about raising funds, it's about trying to change behaviour. Elsewhere, it has been shown to significantly reduce the amount of time that roads, the key roads through the network are occupied by roadworks. In some instances, they have to leave the road to cure, or they have to leave its gasworks, they have to leave the road open in order for the gas to escape. So there are sometimes good reasons why people go past and there's lots of cones or obstructions and nobody working on the highway. But in some cases, it is just because logistically they haven't got their act together, and this attempts to do that. The money that's raised from this will be partly enable us to spend more money on maintenance, which again, I hope everyone will welcome, but also innovation. And the innovation is about trying to get the utility companies to work together, but also to look to where they can to do things like moulding under the road rather than digging up the whole road, and those sorts of things, so they can come forward with schemes where they would like to demonstrate that they're innovating in order to get some of that money back. And there is also provision for emergency works. Effectively, the first 48 hours of an emergency works will be free. There's concern that they might describe their works as emergency when they're not. Well, that will only work for a 48-hour period, and then they'll have to pay. So hopefully that's covered. But it is working elsewhere, and there is there's good evidence that it does improve the position. It doesn't include things like the Wessex Way, and dual carriageways in general, because there's normally a way of getting around those, that one lane being closed down doesn't mean the road's closed down. And in order to get under the 10%, there were other roads that it was felt were more important. That includes all the bus routes, but also some of the other through routes through the conurbation. So in order to sneak in under the 10%, we had to exclude some of those dual carriageways, but on the basis that they are less likely to get completely choked up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. I'm a bit concerned about your full explanation about the road being open for gas to escape, but still, apparently that's how they do it. I do have Councillor Martin down to second. Do you want to speak now before the leader?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, just very happy to support this. I did want to point out that on average, 80% of the works that take place on BCP roads are conducted by utility providers, not by the council, although the council obviously normally gets the brunt of the complaints, even when they're not due. I think we've, as motorists, or those of us that are motorists, are probably very frustrated by the number of times you drive past cones and barriers by the side of the road where nothing appears to be happening for days or weeks on end. So hopefully, as Councillor Hadley said, we'll see a bit more joined up working, and we'll see utilities working a little bit faster. And the final point I would like to make is that actually Councillor Hadley's already made it, but the consultation showed that people are in favour of this, just as they did, or they do, when we consult them on 20 miles an hour. And I say that because consultation gets a bad rap sometimes, and these are good examples of where the consultation works. Thank you.
Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to mention one example of this, which has been driving me up the wall for the last probably 4 days, and that is down at Yarmouth Road and Alder Road. I don't know if anyone has been through that one. In the last few days, I've done it on foot, by bike, and in my car. And oh my goodness, I have not seen a single person working on site. It is one which is by Scottish and Southern Power Distribution, and I'm delighted to see that Alder Road is on this list of roads that are covered along with other major routes across our areas. I think this is an absolute game changer for residents of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, no matter how they travel, in reducing the amount of congestion that we see across our 3 towns. And I'm really excited about putting this in place and being a bit of a pioneer, actually, on lane rental schemes where we've seen them work about 4 other local authorities. So, yes, really supportive of this.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really supportive of this. I think it's a great idea and something we should be doing. I think one of the complaints that we get most is why the road's always closed, why they're closed for so long. So it's brilliant. But one thing that I was looking for in it, that I was hoping to find and couldn't, is it's a concern about when works are being done, materials being left after the roads are finished, whether it's like a cone or a bit of fencing or stone chippings, whatever have been used, just left by the side of the road to residents to deal with, or just to run off in the rain, whatever it might be. Because now we're going to have utilities companies rushing a bit quicker to get off site, and it's probably going to be cheaper for them to abandon more rather than tidy up after themselves. Is there any way that we can enforce in making sure that when they've completed works, they're completed to a state where things aren't left afterwards and it's left for residents to deal with stone chippings, cones, whatever it might be at the side of the road? Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Butt.
Thank you. Yes, I read this with interest. I don't have an issue with it because obviously it's a good concept, I suppose. Obviously, cumulatively over time, if everybody adopts this process, then I imagine it'll have some effect on our household bills for energy, especially with gas and electricity, not so much perhaps the other providers. My concern is, though, that we license everything, don't we? I've got a plethora of works, as you'll all know, in dear old Creekmore at the minute, the Upton Road and the Slip Road at Upton Country Park, etc., etc. And licences are let, and I've had a lot of work with the local representative from SGN, and she's telling me about they have to apply for licences. Now, I know that we have some credence with regard to emergency licences. It may be that Councillor Hadley, who I'm sure is listening, will be able to advise me on that. But otherwise, it's structural planning, isn't it? It's strategic planning. So we know something's going to happen. SGN or SDN, let's take those two providers, want to do something, so they apply for a licence and do it. So it's very much in our hands, isn't it, as to when those licences are let, as to when that timing happens, as to where that planning is. So there's a bit of a disconnect there, that it seems to be to me that, OK, we'll have more ownership of that perhaps, but there's going to be a price for these utilities now to pay. So I don't quite see where that connects. Whereas we let the licence anyway, we're in control of it. It just seems now we're going to get paid for being in control of it. Or does it give us better control in some way? I would like to better understand that. And obviously, we do need to keep an eye on other brother and sister councils as they perhaps take on this same policy, that eventually if the whole of England and Wales and does do it, then obviously it may have an impact upon utility bills, and it's hopefully that will be reviewed. So at any stage that's looking imminent, we need to obviously find a way around that system and to look into what policy might provide for that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. I'm going to ask Councillor Hadley to sum up and also possibly answer that point.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly on your concern about gas escaping, that would be after a gas leak. So the gas would already be in the ground. It's about trying to make sure the gas can escape. Scottish and Southern Energy are doing an awful lot of work in response to Councillor Earl's comment, and that's about resilience of the electricity supply to our area. And I think it's a really important point. When I was having this explained to me and thinking about it, I was thinking, you know, we talk about cars or other vehicles using the highway, but actually that is the main route for all of our utilities is under the highways, because it's the most easy place for the utility companies to get access to it. And to jump to Councillor Butt's point, we currently license for those works, but we can't withhold the license unreasonably. And so they pay for the license, so there will be an increase in the charge they make, but it's not free for them to be licensed. But effectively, some of them have a habit of doing it nearly all under an emergency license, and they won't be able to do that indefinitely. And I think there is a feeling that some of them are playing the game there rather than planning ahead. They just claim it's an emergency, and they won't be able to do that. So we will have better control over that. And I think you're right in terms of other local authorities, as they come on board, that will change the scene. But I think that's probably in a good way, because as we work with them with the incentive fund, there's the opportunity to get them to innovate, to actually spend less time on all the highways. Because my other concern is if they prioritise our priority routes, then they don't prioritise the other routes. Will we see backward movement? And I hope we won't. And I think we're working on that. So the licensing scheme will still exist for all other highways. We'll still have to license for work on any road. And our network management team within the highways team do try and consolidate and work on that. And again, you raised Upton Road, which is in Dorset Council's area, but that was Dorset Council working right, because it's right on the border, with our team and trying to work together, and particularly given the other works that Southern Gas Network were doing on the Upton Road, that was really difficult because there were two significant pieces of roadworks happening, overlapping with each other. In terms of Councillor Rigby's point about materials being left on the highway afterwards, it's part of the traffic management that it's a duty upon the utility providers to get rid of the gear afterwards, to take the stuff away. So if they've left things, it needs reporting, and they can be fined, I think, for leaving stuff on the highway after the event. It does happen, and particularly signs when they're face down, either because the wind put them there or someone knocked them over. They don't necessarily spot them as they're clearing up, but they should be retrieving their kit off the highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley, and thank you, members, for the debate. Do we have consensus to accept? Thank you. Members, I'm going to suggest we have our break now, so that we can then go back to item 10 and then forward. So thank you very much. We'll pause the meeting for now. Members, we are now back live. And we are now going back to our item 10, which was from the Cabinet 4th of March 2026, minute 153, Our Place and Environment Active Travel Funding 2026 to 2027. And again, it's Councillor Hadley. Thank you, Councillor Hadley.
Thanks to the hard work of our officers working on Active Travel England uprated Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council to level 3 for their ATE ratings. That means that we've managed to get double the allocation for delivery of further schemes and further priorities for the current year and for the next few years. Most of that will come through as capital, but some of it comes through as revenue, and that helps us with particularly our work with schools in this area. Our local walking and cycling improvement plan was developed in 2022, and it highlights primary and secondary routes. And the officers have been working on priorities within that, and as outlined in section 10, I've come up with a programme which we have had to go back to Department of Transport on in terms of our plans as we go forwards. But this is for council to dedicate the spend of the £2.9 million active travel funding to the Service Director in conjunction with myself.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. I believe we have Councillor Herrick to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make an amendment to this item number 10. I believe it's all been circulated. It would add, subject to the deletion of current row 3, paragraph 10 on page 177, relating to Poole Park to Broadstone Way route phase 1, and replace it with improvements to the cycle route between Border Drive to Foreland Road in Turlingmore, Hamworthy, to improve walking and cycling from Policeman's Lane to Poole Quay without needing to use Blandford Road, subject to the proposed replacement being within the current proposed budget allocation of that row.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Do you have a seconder for that?
Reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this something, Councillor Hadley, that you could accept as we go, or do you wish to debate and vote?
I'm not able to accept that. I had no prior notice of it, and I can give the reasons.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Earle, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. The amendment has just landed in my inbox, and because it is deletion and addition of words, I haven't quite got my head round what is actually asking, and I would say that's probably the same for others in the chamber. Could we please take 3 to 5 minutes just to see what it is and understand it a bit more, and then crack on with the debate?
Sorry, that's fine. Leader, yes, if everybody wants to peruse it, we'll go offline again for 5 minutes. then, thank you. Right, members, we are now going to debate Councillor Wright's. Oh. Well, he didn't accept it, did he? Councillor Hadley, I've been asked to ask you if now you've read it all, whether you can accept it or not.
Thank you, Chair. No, I can't. Do you want me to give the reasons or
Thank you.
do you want? No.
Right, now, so members, we will now debate the amendment which is put by Councillor Wright. Thank you. Have we got a speaker? Councillor Wright, did you want to speak more on it or not? Right, come on.
The cycle path that skirts, no, hang on, I've gone too far. Any change at this time to the road between the two lakes in Poole Park would not improve walking, cycling, scooting, anything like that. It's already a perfectly good road that is able to be used by cyclists and walkers. Far better use of the £250,000 would be to improve the cycle path around Turlin Moor Recreation Ground, which goes from Border Drive to Forelands Road. This would benefit from improvement. It's constantly flooding, constantly muddy. It's only really usable in the very hottest summer months. If this stretch was linked up between those two roads, it would enable anyone to go all the way from Policeman's Lane, which is right up almost at Litchett, to go down Sandy Lane, all the way down, round Turlin Moor, across to Rockley Sands Caravan Park, down to Hamworthy Park, straight to Poole Quay, without having to touch the very busy Blandford Road. A lot of the money allocated is going to be used for planting and landscaping of the causeway. And I just don't think that's what active travel money should be used for. It should be used for improving cycle routes. So this would be a much better use of the funds that are available. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Councillor Hadley, you've still got your light on. Is it that you do wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this has just landed on us tonight, which is why we need to take a little minute to look at it. I mentioned when I introduced the item that the local walking and cycling improvement plan 2022, and that highlights a number of routes, primary routes in blue and secondary routes in yellow across the whole conurbation. And the route from Whitecliffe up through Poole Park up to towards Broadstone is on the primary network for walking and cycling. We have a crossing going in at the bottom of Birds Hill Road and another one being thought about for the top of Birds Hill Road as a part of that route. Through the park, the proposer suggests that we don't need to do any work. But one of the challenges, unfortunately, is when the access part of Poole Park work was done, the roundabout at that junction was taken out. And so traffic does move through there quite fast, not anticipating that people are doing a cross movement. So there are some challenges in that link. I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest because I'm a chair of the Poole Harbour Trails Group. And the route that is suggested by Councillor Wright is actually interesting in the sense of Poole Harbour Trails. We're keen on getting walking and cycling routes right around Poole Harbour, and actually it would form part of that. So I welcome it as an idea. It's a brand new idea, and it's not one that's been costed. It's not one that's been looked at in detail. So at the very least, I'd need to get guidance from the officers in terms of practicalities. And flooding was mentioned, and that's one of the real challenges with that route round to Sandford is the flooding. That gets very expensive very quickly. In terms of providing all-weather route is the reason we haven't managed to get the link to the airport from from Northbourne, and I think it will probably burst that budget very quickly, unfortunately, based on the work that's already been done across Beta and Whitecliffe, which again they had to raise and think about the flooding impact. So I'm afraid I can't accept the substitution based on all the work the officers have done on this list and priorities that they've given.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
I'm a bit taken aback really on this one because as a ward councillor, I've not been talked to about this. I've been doing work with Andy Hadley on behalf of the residents about expanding and improving the cycleways around Hamworthy. And that's not just a Hamworthy issue, it's about connecting the conurbation right the way through. It has to be strategic, it has to be in the local plan. And this is a fleet of foot thing that has just been dumped down. I feel compromised actually, because he just told me in the toilet, oh, I put an amendment through for Hamworthy. So I'm lucky I didn't pee down my trousers, although I was actually washing my hands. But I'd like to wash my hands of this one. I agree with everything Andy said. I cycle that route all the time. And the reason why it's hard for cyclists is because they choose a desire line, whatever the weather, right the way through the middle of the plain, if you like, from Tree Hamlets, Border Road, over to Fallen Road. But if you ride around the outside, it's as hard as nails. It's a little mountain bike path, and you can cycle it in any weather. So I'm saying I agree with the idea, but not with the way it's been kind of implemented. A little bit like the way I felt about the town councils. So I'm against this, and I support what Andy was saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. That was very colourful. Councillor Rigby.
Thanks, Chair. I wish you'd told us about this sooner, so we could have had some time to have thought about it, because I don't necessarily object to the idea, but also I'm not exactly in favour of the idea, because I don't know enough about it. I don't know this side of the conurbation so well. I used to work over there a little bit, but I don't know it in so much detail that I can wrap my head around it in 5 minutes in a quick debate here. But I'm with you in that I don't think the administration should be the ones who are picking and choosing every time that we go out to what it is, and we should be working together, because, I want to fight for places in my ward and across our side of the conurbation as well. So you've kind of torn me in I like it. It's not ripping out cycling to put in something else. It's cycling for cycling. It's active travel for active travel. It's fine, but I'd love a bit more notice and a bit more time. So I'll probably just abstain on this and leave it at that, and just say in the future, let's try and have discussions a bit earlier, particularly when it comes to strategic things like this. I'd definitely love to be involved more.
Councillor Salmon.
So I don't support this amendment either, and I think it's worth thinking there are only, frankly, two ways to read this, and neither of them are particularly positive in my book. Either it's a well-meaning but fundamentally misguided attempt to intervene in a scheme that the member hasn't properly understood or engaged with, because if they had, this would have been raised at Cabinet. We all know, or we should know, that we can go to Cabinet and raise things then. This is when this should have been done. Or the process is understood, and this is simply some late-stage political grandstanding. And I think it's worth pointing out that actually we've seen this twice this evening.
Councillor, you're supposed to be talking to the amendment.
I am talking to the amendment.
Right.
I want to point out that this is the second amendment of this type we have seen in the Conservative group, where ideas are being raised after the point in the process when they should have been properly brought forward. Now, that does suggest there's a need for better member support and training around how and when to engage with decision making, how to understand what's in your calendar, what committees there are, when you can turn up. This council, full council, should not be unpicking decisions at the 11th hour. I don't think I'm going to support this amendment, and God, I feel like it almost should have been ruled out. That's my 2 cents.
Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Although this isn't my area, having heard Councillor Wright's amendment and also received feedback from residents concerned about the effects on Poole Park and what's proposed, I believe it would be a pragmatic decision to reconsider, particularly on the flooding issue which Councillor Wright's highlighted. Ideally, these schemes should be grassroots-led. This doesn't seem to be the case. What is happening with so many of these schemes, it's top-down. That's what we're seeing with this Lib Dem-led administration. It's all top-down, you accept it, and that's that. Thank you.
Do we have any more speakers on the amendment? I'm going to ask Councillor Wright then to sum up.
Apologies for bringing it late.
Councillor Wright, I'm so sorry. Councillor Gibson reserved his right.
Okay.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The basic proposal at the moment looks at titivating and improving a facility where we already have adequate cycle facilities. I cycle across to Poole quite often for work, and there really is no safety issue there at all. We've already discussed this morning and said how important it is that we avoid accidents, and I would suggest that what we should be doing with that money is not spending it on, in inverted commas, tidying something up, but looking to invest it in a place where we can reduce accidents and improve safety. We've already all agreed that that's very important to do. Councillor Salmon says that we should have dealt with this before. I'm not saying you didn't have the opportunity to deal with it before, but the logical conclusion of that is we don't debate anything in full council. It's already been done beforehand. Surely that's the purpose of having full count, is open debate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, Councillor Wright, I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry it's a bit late, but as I was cycling around the harbour this morning and cycling through Poole Park and then round Turlin Moor on the way back, it came to me. So these things come to you when they come to you. So, but it's about a better use of money. The causeway between the two lakes in Poole Park is fit for purpose right now. You can cycle it, you can walk it, you can scoot it. And this would just be a better use of the money that is available to be got in grants. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, now we need to go to the vote on the amendment. So I think we need to vote on our apparatus. So thank you, members. Get ready to vote, please. Right, everybody voted? Can we have the result? Amendment has fallen, so we now go back to the substantive motion. Oh, hang on, we'll just look at who voted where. There we are. Thank you. Right, so we're now going back to the recommendation from Councillor Hadley, seconded by Councillor Herritt. So we now have on that Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to say I wanted to celebrate the context in which this paper has come to us tonight, which is just to remind people that the council's been uprated from a level 2 to a level 3 authority by Active Travel England, making us one of only 11 local authorities in the country to achieve level 3, which is really exciting. Level 3 is defined as very strong local leadership and organisational capability, comprehensive plans and a significant network in place with a growing number of people choosing to walk, wheel and cycle. Well, this is really very good news, isn't it? It turns out that investing in better infrastructure for walking and cycling does perhaps actually encourage more people to walk and cycle. And that in turn attracts further investment in improvements to our transport infrastructure and our public realm. Who knew? I'm particularly pleased to see work being done on a number of new pedestrian crossings and that I know have been long campaigned for, including in my own area, and which are much needed by local communities in order to provide safer walking and wheeling routes to school for children and families, as well as investment going into secure cycle parking in our town centres, which is a critical element of ensuring that we have a joined up and workable offer with which to encourage those who can to choose alternatives to the private car. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Councillor Keddy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to add my voice to the commendations to the transport team for securing the level 3 capability from Active Travel England and securing nearly 3 million in funding for these projects going forward. And this is over multiple years. It is a fantastic achievement that demonstrates our leadership in active travel as an authority. I am particularly pleased to see the funding for the initial design work for signal crossings on Chalmers Road and Queen's Park Avenue to provide safe routes to school for the Eastway cluster of schools. Residents frequently get in touch with me about the difficulties crossing these arterial roads. My daughter now attends one of the schools in this cluster, and because of where we are located in the ward, for her to cycle to school, she would have to negotiate 2 dangerous arterial feed roads for the Wessex Way. So, and there's no bus provision from this side of Charminster either. So we are, like hundreds of families, forced into unnecessary car journeys. Every morning when I'm dropping my daughter off at school, I see children struggling to cross Queen's Park Avenue. And it really does feel like it's a matter of time before someone is killed or seriously injured. So I, with heartfelt joy, welcome the initial design work funding for this project. It also links in with funding for a crossing on the Springbourne roundabout, where many families try to access local primary and secondary schools. I walk my youngest daughter to school this way, and my wife and I describe it as the daily dice with death, as cars are still doing 50 miles an hour when they come off the dual carriageway. So the net effect of this is work on 2 crossings, which will create an arterial active travel route that will stretch from Bournemouth railway station all the way to Castle Lane. It will link the most deprived areas in our ward and give access to green spaces, schools and work. And I just could not be happier with how this has come together. So I am very grateful, and I commend the report and the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trent, please.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. I abstained on the last amendment because I'm aware that there's a very short time frame before potential roads are put forward for consideration. And we did have a seminar back in the early winter or late autumn on that subject. But I really want to make a point now, because I think we need to think about what we're going to look for in the future now, so that it can be looked at and processed. And the one thing I feel really passionate about, and I've been chasing it up for 3+ years, is having a replacement for that rather pathetic little narrow cycle lane by the side of Camford Way dual carriageway that goes past Alderney West. We had a tragic accident where a mother of 2 young children was killed a little while ago. We had to wait about a year or so for the police to do their reports and so on. But what is quite obvious from everything that happened, and or the potential for other things to happen, is that we've got a lovely cycleway, Ringwood Road, Wallisdown Road, and if someone's going towards Camford Heath, they've got this pathetic little narrow thing that is really dangerous, and there's no safe crossings of the road. And I think we need to look at programming in the future a safe cycle walking track down the side of that dual carriageway that links up with Camford Heath Road, that enables youngsters for example, in my patch, to get to Ashdown School, which many of them do go to Ashdown School. And I really hope that we're going to...
We're going a bit off piste, aren't we, here? Can we
Well,
stick to
well,
what
not
we've
really.
got?
I think we need to put these things on record now, along with the suggestion in Hamworthy, so that they can be looked into and included in next year's programme, because the one I've referred to desperately needs doing. In fact, I think it needs doing more than some of the ones that are being done, but I'm not arguing with that. I'm saying that we need to make sure that we deliver on these things. And as I say, I feel passionate about this one because someone lost their life on it. And I really do think we need to get on and do something. So, yeah.
Councillor Earl.
Thank you. I'm looking at the list of speakers and just hoping that we're not going to start a new list of requests for future funding. I do want to add, though, this has gone both through TAG and through Cabinet. There are lots of opportunities in which councillors can get involved in looking at how this money is spent, and we really do welcome suggestions. And I would suggest obviously speaking to the transport team or speaking to Councillor Hadley. And what I wanted to do was just also commend Councillor Hadley's leadership in this area, and thank you to colleagues for recognising that. As a cabinet, we're actually incredibly proud that we all use various methods of transport, whether that is cycling, buses, barrel bikes, or driving, and we try and be examples of people commuting to and from work and active travel. Some of us more fair weather than others, but still trying to set an example for our communities. And that's why I think this is just fantastic news. £11 million into active travel. And it's not just active travel, it's infrastructure updates. And I know Councillor Wright mentioned about not using money for active travel on landscaping and so on, but I think that this is a real opportunity for us to improve some of our street scene, to make areas look a lot nicer, green our areas as well. And I think that if we're going to be serious about modal shift, changing the environment, increasing biodiversity and tackling climate, then actually we do need to use some of that money for increasing landscaping and improving our areas. And the final thing I wanted to mention was actually about road safety as well. I know, I completely agree. I think putting in new crossings is a really good example. I've really enjoyed using the Ringwood Road crossing on my bike and as a pedestrian, and it does make those transport routes a lot better, and especially makes them accessible for children. I think that's where the real goal is with active travel funding, is enabling young people to get to and from school and get around, whether by bike, on their scooter, or walking. And this money will go a really long way into ensuring the safety of our children across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. We've got 3 more speakers, and then we'll go to summing up and the vote. So firstly, Councillor Carl Brown.
It's okay, Councillor Dedman, to be on first name terms. Yeah, I also wanted to join with other councillors in welcoming the level 3 status that the local authority has got now. I know that's a real signaler of the quality of the officers that we have in this area, and also the support from portfolio holder. Yes, in Queen's Park in Charminster, I am absolutely delighted that we'll be getting our first zebra crossing in the ward. Currently, we haven't got any. I realise it's not a numbers game, but I do think it says something about how travel around the ward was seen, that it wasn't seen as a sort of primarily pedestrian thing. And I've been campaigning, as a couple of portfolio holders in this room will know, because I've bent their ears and got them on street corners looking at the dangerous crossing on Queen's Park Avenue, where at its junction with Howard Road. I've been campaigning on that for some time. And I'm so delighted for the school children that they will finally get, I know it's at the design stage, but they will finally get that crossing. Because we have to remember that some children are making journeys of 30, 45 minutes to get to school, either on foot or by bike. And they're passing through several areas to get to school. And it shows the nature of their journeys and how we must consider them differently from work journeys, which is where I think active travel has been a little, well, sort of stuck. So it's a recognition. I think this paper is a real recognition that active travel needs to be about more than men going to work on bikes with thin wheels. And I know that is something that's shared by officers and portfolio holder here. And I was absolutely preaching to the converted when I talked to them about this and the shift that if we could achieve here and the potential benefits that we unlock through that with physical, mental health, the independence and the confidence that children will get from making their own way to school, problem-solving skills, quite apart from the reduction in congestion, air pollution, all of those things, incredibly important. And I spent some time talking to the schools and I submitted a report, and I really want to thank those schools that helped, the schools at Eastway that helped me with that, shared their data and allowed me to speak to some of their children. And they told me about the near misses that they'd had at this junction. And they also told me how their parents don't let them walk to school or cycle to school because they think it's too dangerous. But the ones that did also told me about how they really enjoyed their independence. So I really, really appreciate this, and also the focus on the cluster of schools in Eastway for the safer active journeys, essential part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams, please.
Try again. Sorry about that. Look, I really do support the crossing improvements on Turbury Park Avenue and particularly the Kinston Road junction. That one's quite dangerous, but overall I won't be supporting the recommendations. I think people have had enough. The disruption it brings to their lives. Turbury Park Avenue, the work for Turbury Park Avenue particularly will cause parking problems on Kimber Road. I can hear someone booing, but that's fine. I think you speak to someone in the pub, you ask someone who's tried to get to work, you speak to residents, read the comments in the Echo, look at the Facebook groups, just go and speak to your people. I think they've had enough of it. We put so much energy into these cycle lanes and most of them don't have popular support. We've done it time and time again and successive administrations have pushed ahead against the popular support. If you look at any consultation for the past 4 or 5 years, including say Poole Park, which we're doubling down on, that was the most responded to consultation in the council's history. The people said they didn't want it, and yet we've just ignored them. And we're going to do it again and again and again, and I've just had enough of it. People in Kinston, people in Wallasdown, people in Talbot Woods just want to get to work, and they've had enough of all the disruption, so I'm against it.
I did say that I'd stop the list after Councillor Bartlett, but I see we have 2 more speakers, so I will take them. So first of all, Councillor Bartlett, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll get it right one day. Sorry about that. Yeah, I support this paper. So I recognise many of the improvements are really genuinely needed. My concern is that it might change, and I am a bit, and I go back to some of the active travel schemes that were put forward before, and I remember one in particular, which was the crossing of the River Stour, which would have given a direct route across the Stour for people going to work to and from Ensbury Park, Red Hill area, and the rest of the town, in fact, directly to the airport, which would have meant that so many people wouldn't have to travel all the way through Ferndown, etc. It would have been a major improvement, but it didn't go ahead. We had a consultation on it, and it just stopped. And that's why I'm a bit concerned about here, because the authority for implementing this programme is vested with the Director of Transport and indeed the portfolio holder. So can I have firm assurance of the portfolio holder these schemes in here will go ahead, and if they decide to scrap all of them and decide to spend all that money on a new cycle scheme, that they will bring it back to council for its approval? It's just a question of control on what we've agreed tonight, and I'm not sure how that control is exercised. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to respond to the point about the comment I made about if you look at any consultation, you know, people don't want this and aren't in support of it. Well, I think you need to widen your view of consultation, because actually the Transforming Travel consultation about 4 years ago, an awful lot of people were very much in support of transforming travel and installing cycle lanes and improving bus travel, adding bus lanes and improving our road network. So if you're going to say, look at any consultation, look at the Transforming Travel consultation and look at the level of support for these schemes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gillian Martin, please.
Yeah, I do obviously support safer travel, but I've got concerns about the closure of the underpass under Pool Bridge. I used to live in that area. I don't live in that area anymore. It's not my ward, but I would be concerned about if there's a major incident, you know, you're shutting roads off with big planters that can't be moved. And my concern is that in the event of a major incident, traffic that needed to get through couldn't then get through. So, you know, like ambulances, fire engines, things like that. It's and there again, it also goes back to this is something that residents just don't want.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to, I'm going to, before I ask Councillor Hadley to wind up, to allow Councillor Herrett to say his piece for the seconder.
Thank you, Chair. It's been quite interesting hearing some different views. As a multimodal traveller myself, using cars, bus, bike, train and walking just in the last 10 days, active travel, I think, is something the majority of, that most of us do at some point, purely by walking or wheeling, start or end of a journey. I am going to have to remind Councillor Wright that he does seem to be suffering from memory loss, because last night he told me he intended to move an amendment involving Turlin Moor. I think it was in the toilet as well, although the detail at the time was less clear, so we still needed to work through that. I'd also feel the need to point out to members that this money is being spent strategically, with prior engagement with the TAG group, who were all invited to interrogate the schemes that were likely to be brought forward in line with the LC whip and the strategic aims of the council. It sees money being spent in wards across the conurbation, having been agreed at TAG and Cabinet before today. I will also say that sometimes schemes do have to wait due to wider issues. Anyone who I get talking to about road safety will understand that Ensbury Park gyratory, right in my own ward, is, in my opinion, an incredibly dangerous part of our network. Really close to a lot of schools, but it's so complex. It's going to be a really big scheme to deal with it properly, and I have to wait my turn, as many of you also have to do too. And because we are acting strategically across the network, I'm going to remind councillors we have over 100 requests for crossing on our priority list, and more being added on a regular basis. And our teams do respond to looking at those. So if you do have crossings where you would like to point them out, officers will be pleased to come and examine that. One of the other things that we've been keen to work on is our routes around schools, and this specifies that design work for future years, pedestrian crossings that are connecting routes, independence of travel for children and young people going to school. It's one of the most significant things we can do, in my opinion. It is no coincidence that Dutch teenagers are amongst the happiest in the world, as they are amongst the most independent. Steps taken to enable independent travel ultimately come from how safe people feel while travelling, and the risk is so frequently tied up in the amount of vehicle movements that are outside schools every day and how dangerous some of that behaviour is. Last night at ONS, we discussed at length safety on the streets around schools. We were reminded of the 3 E's for those of you that were in the room: education, engineering and enforcement, and this does provide the engineering. Thank you.
Councillor Hadley, would you like to sum up before we go to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I guess in response to Councillor Trent and also to Councillor Wright, I think I used to commute along the Camford Way, and it was one of the routes that I thought I could get killed very easily. One slip. I absolutely agree that that route is far too narrow and alongside a very busy road. And indeed, I knew the young lad that got killed on the Hulls Bay Road from going off the cycleway onto the road. So absolutely, that's a real concern to me. But there are so many concerns around the whole conurbation that we need to worry about. I think the route through Turley that you described is an interesting route, and I would certainly be keen to look at it with the officers in terms of how we can do something about that. Quite a few people mentioned the Eastway cluster and the schools. I went into Queen's Park Infant School and talked to their eco warriors at the first school, and one of the projects they'd done was to go out and look at dangers. It's not just about outside the school gate; it's their whole journey from home to school. And so we're looking at Poole High at the East Way cluster, and also at the school in Christchurch, Twynham School, in terms of how and listening to children, how they get to school, where they perceive the dangers and barriers to be. And I think that's a really important, exciting piece of work. And I know that the lead officer is really excited to be doing that. Councillor highlighted that leading by example, and I think that's a really important bit. She also highlighted the green areas. We have to think forwards in terms of climate, in terms of shading, to enable people to be able to walk and cycle safely in the future. And in terms of drainage, and that includes rain gardens and other things. The drainage is actually expensive in any road scheme. The comments in the national newspapers about wasted money on cycleways and nobody uses them. I use the Ringwood Road quite a lot. It's not yet finished. And so you have to dodge around signs and half-built bus stops and that sort of thing, or be on the road where people don't expect you to be. But it is increasing in use, and most of the money actually went on the motor car and on bus priorities. It didn't go on the cycleway. Concerns that it might change, and the River Stour crossing it absolutely is something I really wanted to see. It was part of the Transform Travel programme, and the funding for Transform Travel was fixed. The inflation through the COVID and Trustonomics and Brexit, and it made it impossible for us to do all the schemes we needed to. So unfortunately, we had to stop at Northbourne for now. It's still on the books as a scheme we'd love to do, but it's way beyond the budget that we've got available to do it. And part of that was the sensitivity of getting across those flood meadows, and whether you took a raised route across so you were completely out of the water, or a lower route and anticipated not being able to use it in the winter time. So that's still on the books. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Members, can we go to the vote with our machines, please? Have we all voted, members? No? Thank you. Right, members, as you see, that is approved. No, it's only... Members, we're going to deal with the additional recommendations arising from the Audit and Governance Committee, which was last week, and it's been circulated within the supplementary pack as an urgent item in accordance with the Constitution. Okay, so that's item 17, Audit and Governance Committee, 19th of March 2026, minute number 119, 2 Rivers Meet Studios. Now, I know the chairman of that is not here, so can I have the person who is going to propose, who might be waving to me, I think. Yeah, Councillor Herring.
Thank you. I think there was some confusion as to who was going to present this, so we're going to mash those two options together. I'm going to propose it, and Councillor Andrews is going to second that. So this paper is to ask Council to approve an investment of £1.8 million in the 2 Rivers Meet Leisure Centre in Christchurch, funded through prudential borrowing set against future uplifts in revenue through the much improved facility we will have at the end of that construction. Our officers have, using a cross-section of data from Sport England's investment tool, local knowledge and trajectories, as well as decades of experience in the industry, predicted an uplift of 18% in income across several revenue streams. Children's parties, catering, external hires, sports hall and squash court use as availability improves, as well as in uplifts in membership, as well as better retention. We know our lack of studio space is an important issue that our customers want us to improve. because that need has come from customer feedback, our built needs assessment, and a clear recognition that sports hall and squash court arrangement in existence at the moment is no longer fit for purpose in a modern setting. The active wellbeing industry is in growth, and our facilities enable pay-as-you-go options that are simply not available in private clubs, as well as GP referral services and a contribution that goes well beyond the door. Sport England estimates for every £1 invested in this area, £4 in economic and social value is delivered, improving wellness and resilience in our population, as well as future costs for the NHS. I will also finally say this is a long overdue, will not preclude future spending on our leisure services, and whilst not baked in at this point, is forecast to deliver a future improvement in our financial performance and a positive contribution to the MTFP.
So, Councillor Andrews, please.
Yeah, happy to second, but I wish to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Do we have Councillor Novo, please.
I was on A&G when we discussed this, and I think the proposal to invest 1.8 million in a new multi-use studios at Two Rivers Meet Leisure Centre is a very important proposal and will enhance this well-used community facility. Two Rivers Meet is the only BCP-run leisure facility for Christchurch. Demand for group exercises, well-being, martial arts and cultural activities continues to grow, and the existing space at Two Rivers Meet limits the number of people that can attend the centre and the activities that can be carried out. I think that it's important that the Council continues to invest to keep facilities competitive and give the residents of Christchurch the best possible leisure facility we as a Council can provide. Therefore, I will be supporting this motion, and I hope others will too. Thank you.
Councillor David Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Fully welcome this this evening as somebody that goes to Two Rivers every Monday night with my wife who teaches swimming, and Cody who attends swimming lessons. It's great to see the existing users that we talked about, who will be the young children doing their gymnastics, who will be the group that do their martial arts, again, the parties, and any investment that we can make into the Christchurch offer for our community is very much welcome. So really pleased to have this here in front of us today, and we'll be fully supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, of course, the leisure centres play a major role in the health and well-being of residents, and Christchurch is no different to anybody else, and they deserve a really first-class facility, the same as the other areas. But unfortunately, the thing that we have to focus on slightly more nowadays is because of the pressure on the budget, and our revenue budget in particular. And so we can't ignore the finances of this. And unfortunately, this paper does not give the whole story about the finances. What it does do, it focuses on the investment itself and the benefit that comes from that investment. It is an ambitious investment, but it's also ambitious in terms of the margin that it will produce. 18% increase in turnover, which comprises about 50% new membership and about 50% resulting sales from the restaurant, etc., etc. That sounds really good, doesn't it? But what you've got to do is look at the overall picture. And the overall picture for Christchurch Leisure Centre is that it makes a significant loss if you take it as an entity and divorce it from the rest of the leisure centre budget. It does actually incur a lot of subsidy. It's a big subsidy, a massive subsidy by comparison with the amount of money that will be produced by this investment, which is fairly small. The return on it is fairly small. It will go nowhere near meeting the contribution that the general fund has to make to sustain that operation. Now, having said that, to balance that, if you look at the overall leisure budget for all leisure centres owned by BCP and operated under BCP Leisure, they are in credit. So you could argue, well, okay, one of them is slightly spending over budget, but the others are making up the difference. But if it's finances we're interested in, this investment, and it's 18%, is very ambitious. And I would suggest to you that it's probably over-ambitious and will not produce the returns that are promised here. As I said, I am supportive of the leisure centres, but we must understand what we're voting for here tonight. This is a risk, and it may be that the MTBF could be affected in a negative way if this investment does not produce the returns that is promised in this paper. I congratulate the leisure team for the enthusiasm and commitment they've had to developing this service. There's no criticism of them at all. But please be aware that this is a risky investment. It might not do what it says on the tin. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't seem to have any other speakers on this. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. Since 2024, major financial matters, such as fresh borrowing over a certain level, needs full council approval. Wasn't like that before. Indeed, also, prior to going ahead, audit and governance needs to scrutinise the matter and check the financial robustness of the scheme. ANG did that last week. We spent well over an hour on the matter, and that included going below the line to look at some confidential information, which is in your agenda pack, but obviously it's restricted. The majority agreed that the scheme was workable and agreed to proceed, and it will be a good improvement for Christchurch. And we'll see a lot of those folk who probably have to go east, west and north to find leisure facilities to suit their requirements. It will give them a local place to go to. So I commend the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak briefly as the portfolio holder for health and wellbeing, and which covers public health. And as members will know, in the last year, we've now got a new Director of Public Health and Communities. And you speak to any of our public health colleagues, and it is part of our responsibility here in terms of running local public health services to make decisions and to have policies and strategies to increase and improve the health and wellbeing of our residents right across the conurbation. And from a public health point of view, you speak to our public health professionals, and what are the two main things that can improve health and wellbeing are to give up smoking and regular physical exercise. Regular physical exercise has such an impact on people's health. And you know, if you read the points in this, the summary of public health implications, it talks about this scheme would give a wider choice and ability for specialised programmes which will support the growth of GP referral schemes and transition of members from the referral into memberships. And it talks about the massive saving to the NHS that from public leisure centres that preventing costly health conditions. And in 1 year, it predicts that that saved the NHS £398 million. So while I understand the points about the financial return on investment, even if it's smaller than is here, even if there's a small return on investment financially in terms of a commercial operation, the human return on investment on top of that, for me, massively outweighs the financial return. If we can even just break even financially on something, if it's delivering for our residents and the human return on investment in terms of improved health and wellbeing and reduced pressure on the NHS, then I'll support that every day of the week.
Councillor Gillian Martin, please.
Madam Chair, yeah, I fully support development of leisure facilities. I really fully support it. I think because I looked, I was with a private provider up until Christmas this year, and then this year I decided I'd look around and shop around, and I did shop around, and I did consider Two Rivers Meet, you know, joining there as opposed to BH Live. I joined BH Live in the end because what actually put me off Two Rivers Meet is you have to pay for parking every time you visit. And I think, and I agree with Councillor Bartlett, that things might or might not make money, but I think what would be a good idea, I will support it, but I think what would be a good idea is to look into providing parking permits for members using the club, long-term parking permits.
Councillor Canavan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to speak, but I did want to say something in response to Councillor Brown's comments about health and wellbeing. when this proposal came to scrutiny, which it did before it went to AMG, one of the questions that was raised was, why are we doing it just for Two Rivers Mead? If we're going to invest money to improve health and well-being across our community by improving facilities at leisure centres, why are we just focusing on that one centre? Wouldn't it be more sensible, was a question that I asked, to think about the leisure centres as a whole and think about a project which would improve all of those leisure centres? Because what that would mean would be that people across the conurbation would have something closer to where they live in order to be able to partake of these facilities rather than having to travel to Two Rivers Mead. That argument obviously wasn't successful, but the reason it went, well, one of the reasons it went to audit and governance was to assess risk. And as Councillor Bartlett has described, there is a risk involved in this project because it makes certain assumptions about the return on that money. And they are, I think ambitious is actually quite a polite phrase in terms of the assumptions that this makes. You know, I can quite imagine in a different context, a discussion in the future from a question from residents as to why did you invest £1.8 million in the middle of an oil crisis and an energy crisis when you were gambling on getting a 15% return just to break even? That to me feels like a massive risk. Not that I'm against the additional facilities at Christchurch or at Two Rivers Mead, but I think that money, if it was spread more widely across all of the leisure centres, would generate a much better return in terms of health and well-being across our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just say, I've been in both of those meetings, I think, that surely the leisure centres are not all equal. So you can't bring them all up to standard by... Anyway, never mind. Councillor Sarah Armstrong.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your patience. I wasn't going to speak either, but I felt that I need to. I was at the Audit and Governance meeting recently where I have to say Councillor Herritt and leisure officers were really, really grilled. In fact, we've had several discussions and I'd want to really commend actually Councillor Herritt for the responses and for the amount of work that he did in presenting the case. At the meeting, I voted against the proposal and I voted against accepting it because I was really concerned about the borrowing aspect and also about the ambitious nature of the finances that were presented to us, and also what Councillor Canavan was saying about, you know, having an approach that benefits more of the leisure centres and not just one. And I wasn't really convinced in terms of why it had to be that particular leisure centre that was going to benefit from that, all of that investment. So I'm sorry that I can't support this. I'm not speaking against health and wellbeing initiatives, and I'm not speaking against, not supporting residents in Christchurch to have this improved facility. Health and wellbeing really, I don't think, is the conversation here. The conversation here is about the finances, about borrowing, and how do we justify that to residents in terms of we've invested 1.8 million here and we had to take on more borrowing to be able to do that. And that's the area that I didn't quite get comfortable with that. Thank you.
Councillor Herritt, can you sum up, please?
I can. Thank you, everyone. Always good to hear about the benefits of activity, and it takes us back to the previous paper with another big tip for active travel on living active lives being the second best thing you can apparently do other than stop smoking. I do recognise there's some risk, and there is always risk. I'm inclined to trust our officers. This investment has been tested by our internal investment board, corporate management board, cabinet, and A&G for about 3.5 hours across 2 sessions, in fact 3. And whilst I understand some of their reticence, I do have faith that it has been thoroughly tested. Our teams have made great strides in this area. In the last year of the externalised contract that operated in Poole, that was subsidised to the tune of £650,000. And by the end of this financial year, that will have come down by very close to £500,000. And that is the whole service, representing a saving to the council, obviously, of that £500,000. This scheme should, in accordance with the forecast, slot into our MTFP, representing a further improvement to that subsidy. I'm very pleased to inform Councillor Martin there is a permit available for parking at Two Rivers Meet, should she wish to review her decision. And for Councillor Canavan, the reason this scheme was brought forward was that we had a business plan where this can contribute more quickly, and it has some planning constraints that we were keen to get through. We did contemplate the much wider picture, and we will hopefully be back for that at some point. I am going to disagree with Councillor Bartlett, which I'm sure won't come as a surprise to him. There is robustness in the plan, a contingency of 20% included in the budget, a drop of 15% in the forecasted uplift allowed before any impact risk to the budget exists, as well as a sinking fund of £10,000 per year before there is a risk to the service or the wider council finances. It's not uncommon for leisure centres to provide cross-subsidy in local authorities services. I was on a course with other portfolio holders in this area in January, where this was used as a good practice example of with facilities that were really well used and well kept up, being able to subsidise some of those and improve investment. The figures that Councillor Bartlett also mentions are actually to be subjected to cross-charging of staff and deal with some significant improvements that have happened in the result of energy improvements there that will hopefully bring that down. In fact, not hopefully, they will bring that down. 20 years is an awfully long time to try and predict the future, and our Treasury management team will always look to deal with things proactively. 5 years and 2 months ago, we were not predicting COVID, Ukraine war, or even Liz Truss. So there will always be a need to have to ride out issues caused by external factors, or in the case of the Conservative Party, internal factors. This is an investment not only in the short-term uplift of our own facilities in Christchurch, but in the long-term health and well-being of our residents. So I'm pleased to recommend to Council that we back that.
Thank you. Councillors, we're going to go to the vote, please, with our machines. Thank you. Right, have we all voted? Oh, all right. Right, thank you very much, members. That's approved. Thank you. Right. Item 13 is simply the calendar of meetings 2026 to 27 and 27 to 28. Gosh. So I'm going to move this recommendation, members, and Councillor Bull is going to second, I hope.
Indeed.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, further to the licensing subcommittee meetings as set out in this evening's papers, there is a need for additional meetings dependent on the business situation, and those meetings will be dealt with via officers through the Constitution to arrange for those. So it's just to make members aware that we do have additional meetings on top of those that are currently listed. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Flagg. Yes, it's not set in stone, as we all know. I mean, it's really set out to prevent people booking concerts or anything that clash with our meetings. So, members, do we have consensus on this list of meetings? Thank you. Thank you very much. Members, we are now on to notices of motion. Councillor Salmon, you have a motion here on protecting enforceable SEND support. So yes, can I call upon you, Councillor Joe Salmon?
Yeah, so this motion's really straightforward and I hope it's uncontroversial as well. We're seeing the SEND reforms move through Parliament. This is the last full council meeting before the consultation on those reforms ends. We've both got two children who we had to fight really hard for to get an EHCP, recognise the system isn't perfect and all of that. But one of the things we've heard again and again and again from other parents of children with EHCPs and so forth is that when you look at the proposed reforms, there is a real concern that there is going to be a loss of the legal right to the support that you get with an EHCP. I mean, it's quite a long motion. I'm sorry it's so long. I wish I could have made it shorter and snappier. But in essence, it just says that this council listens to its residents and is happy to stand up for the rights of children who have the thing SEND stands for. I'm sorry, I'm quite ill, so I'm not as snappy with my speech. But that's it. We should be safeguarding the rights of these children. We should be saying loud and clear to government that we don't want them thrown under the bus. I'm going to be frank, as a parent of a child with additional needs who's experienced the care system, they feel like one of the groups this government disdains the most. We've already had to deal with things like the total loss of the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. Just came home one day from work and was told, oh, that's gone. That's gone. The therapy that your daughter's been accessing is no longer funded. This government will not protect the rights of SEND children. So we have to, as a body, as a council, say, oh yeah, these things matter. These reforms matter. As much as reform is needed, it needs to be done well, enshrining the rights of those children. Yeah, I've probably spoken for longer than I need to on this. I'm glad everybody can support this motion, and I hope everybody listened to the wonderful statements made by other parents who are far more eloquent than I am now at this late hour on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Councillor Kate Salmon, I think you're going to second.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I am, and I'll reserve my right to speak.
Members, do we have any speakers on this? Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at the motion, it seems obvious that on an initial reading that it's something that everyone would have no problem with and would naturally support. But, you know, and as Councillor Salmon has just said, you know, it's a lot of detail in here. The motion is very detailed to the point that you probably need to have more knowledge of the SEND legislation and the proposals made by government to be able to make an informed judgment on this motion. Now, my view is, and I don't decry or disagree necessarily with the motion, but I do believe that we have professional officers working with the legislation and the impact that it has, and will be then informing our portfolio holder and indeed our Children's Overview and Scrutiny Panel, who spend endless time debating this issue. My preference would not be for the council to be reacting to a motion from an individual, no matter how well intentioned and how well informed it is. I prefer it to be coming as a recommendation from the Overview and Scrutiny Board, who have got considerable experience and have got the advice of professional officers. That's what we should be focusing on. I wouldn't want us, I mean, I don't understand all the recommendations fully enough to be able to make an informed judgment on it, whilst it seems on the face of it to be okay. I'm just a bit concerned that we might be leveraged into doing something that the council isn't really supportive of because we're not getting the view of officers on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Salmon, for raising the concerns on this motion. The provision for special education needs is an issue. I think we can all agree that. The system is broken, and I'm relieved that the government is trying to address it. But because it's been broken for so long, there's a lack of trust which creates anxiety. And anxiety is amplified by the oncoming changes. I totally understand this, and I feel for the children, young people and their families. The motion raises legitimate concerns. However, unfortunately, I can't support it for several reasons. And I don't say this lightly. I've tried to find a way to suggest some amendments, but there's too much here to amend it in a situation like this to make it workable. The SEND reforms are still under consultation and many details are not settled. This motion would tie the hands of officers and stop them from acting in the best interests of our children and this council. Instead of rejecting reforms outright, we should engage and help shape the new system. The motion assumes individual support plans, which it mentions in the white paper, are inferior to EHCPs. However, the EHCP process can be slow and adversarial. I hope ISPs will provide a quicker, less bureaucratic way of quickly attaining support. Schools within BCP also produce individual education plans, IEPs. These are not strictly statutory in England. ISPs will have increased legal provision. The motion suggests increased school responsibility is a risk, but schools are the first to identify the needs and provide, if appropriately funded, faster support. Also, the motion implies that EHCPs as the only guaranteed support, so it risks reinforcing a system where families feel forced into pursuing EHCPs. It would be remiss of me not to mention the high needs overspend. The motion says that support must be driven by need rather than affordability, and I can agree with this sentiment. However, it's a rather simplistic statement. Interest in our deficit alone is huge, and the money could be spent on our services. Investing in early intervention, creating better outcomes for children, expanding local specialist capacity, reducing dependency on independent placement is better. Lastly, you mentioned trauma-informed support and therapeutic access. These can be championed more effectively by engaging constructively with the national reform rather than setting preconditions. I would very much encourage everybody to take part in the consultation themselves. Read the right paper, read it well. You can do it individually, you can do it as a group. When the consultation is over and we see the draft bill, we can then oppose anything that we don't agree with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Pankhurst, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Councillor Jo Salmond for bringing this motion. It's a motion that is clearly passionate and puts children at the core. And I can see it's born out of care and compassion for arguably the most vulnerable members of our community, our young people. And they're all things that speak to me as a councillor. And it's important for me to say that there's little I disagree with in this motion, but I do have two concerns, and I wish to raise them. And the concerns I have do make it hard for me to support the motion as it stands. I do share similar concerns to those raised by Councillor Bartlett. So my first concern is that Council are being asked to agree tonight the basis for a collective response to the government SEND reforms as set out in the white paper. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in this room that haven't engaged with that white paper, and that doesn't sit well with me. Secondly, I would question if senior children's services officers have been consulted ahead of this motion coming to full council this evening. I sit on the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Board, and at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, the white paper was briefly discussed as a part of an update we received from John Coughlin. John is a government advisor for the Department for Education, and he's been chairing the SEND Improvement Board and overseeing the council's SEND improvement journey. John told us that his involvement as a government advisor to BCP will now cease due to the positive improvement BCP have made as recognised as part of the recent SEND inspection. He added that over the course of the last 3 years, our local leadership have grappled much more directly and strongly with the challenge of children's services generally and SEND in particular. John shared his view that much of the improvement SIN has been because of a much more stable series of leaders that has been established both in children's services, the officers, but also politically. He impressed on us what a big difference this makes. I therefore suggest, given the objectively recognised strength of not only the political leadership of the council, but also the officers within the council, that we first consult with those senior leaders within children's services as the experts in delivering change and positive outcomes before we agree to a collective stance as a council. We must ensure that all councillors are fully informed before any resolutions are made at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olivia Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to begin by recognising that colleagues across this chamber, and particularly the Salmons, because they've brought other motions, care deeply about the experience of SEND families, and this is an emotive issue. There are strong and sincere concerns raised today, and we all want to, and in fact have a responsibility as corporate parents to ensure that children and young people receive the support they need and that their legal protections remain strong. I genuinely appreciate the intention behind this motion and the commitment it reflects to safeguarding enforceable SEND rights, both as a parent and a teacher. However, I cannot support the motion at this moment, not because I disagree with the sentiment, but because the national picture is still developing and requires careful, well-informed consideration. The government's white paper and the consultation specifically invite councils, families and professionals to respond to these proposals before anything's finalised. I am genuinely pleased that the current government is attempting to address the SEND crisis that's built up over many years. These national developments are significant and they do show a willingness to tackle long-standing pressures in the system. But because this is such an important moment for shaping the future of SEND provision, it's vital that our response is measured, fully informed and rooted in evidence, particularly the experiences of our local SEND community. For that reason, I feel this motion is slightly premature. Before the council sets the fixed position, we should take the time to understand the proposals in more detail, work through them carefully with officers, Children's Services Committee and the SEND community in partnership. I'm concerned that acting too quickly risks weakening rather than strengthening our eventual contribution to the national consultation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. As these reforms take shape, it's vital that additional obstacles, stress and ultimately negative outcomes for young people, their families and carers aren't created. We want the SEND system to be sustainable, but also one that is fair and I believe enforceable and centred on need, not affordability. Our responsibility as corporate parents are to make sure that every young person, whatever their circumstances, has a genuine opportunity to thrive. That means safeguarding rights as the system evolves. EHCPs currently provide a legal enforceable route to the support that's needed, and the proposed shift towards individual support plans may be effective for some, but they do not carry the same legal protections that many families will rely on, and that protection being essential. Factoring increasing pressures on schools, reducing access to critical support and narrowing the routes for families to challenge unmet needs could have significant consequences. We have heard from Sarah, Jerry and Rachel this evening with their public statements, with their insights, their lived experience and passion. If this garners their support, it actually has mine, so I will be supporting the motion this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carr-Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors, for bringing this motion. I do understand where it's coming from. I'm speaking tonight as an autistic person who's a parent to two autistic boys, one who had an EHCP. He received very good support in school and only needed an EHCP when he changed to go to college. And despite having an EHCP, it didn't mean he got the extra support that was contained in it. I had to push them to purchase it. It was overly bureaucratic for his level of need. But an EHCP was the only way to get it. I would have preferred that the college to have had a culture of inclusivity and appropriately trained teachers and assistants rather than having to buy it in specially, as it were. Everyone agrees that the current system is broken and unsustainable, and we should commend the government for grasping the nettle that no one else would. And I thank those that have this evening. The government's reforms are an holistic wraparound approach to identifying need and providing the education, care and outcomes that all our children deserve, whilst also addressing the long-standing local authority deficits with 165 million written off for BCP, potentially, and billions invested across the piece. I'm confident they will safeguard the rights of children with special educational needs. Parents will still have a legal right to support Individual support plans expand the support available and aim to reach those who can't presently get an EHCP. It's not about limiting access to EHCPs. They remain in place for those who need them. It's about better provision, more support and earlier intervention so that fewer EHCPs will be needed and more children will remain in mainstream schools, which is where the vast majority of parents want their children to be. If specialist provision is needed, it will be there and hopefully closer to home. This is the same direction of travel that officers in this council have been taking with schools for the past few years and is a large part of our improving SEND journey, taking BCP out of special measures. Is this motion saying that everything they've been working towards is wrong-headed? Personally, I trust their expertise and experience. We've been looking at this area extensively for the past 2 years in committee with a range of papers, including from our health partners, encompassing aspects such as trauma-informed therapeutic approaches. I see no problem with trusting the professionals in our schools either, the teachers who know our children best with the decisions around provision. Why shouldn't the money be given to them, keeping it as close to the children as possible and not come through the council? Are teachers and schools not to be trusted either? And additionally, Ofsted will be inspecting based on inclusion as well. I agree wholeheartedly around training, and there's a whole host of other measures that are being brought in, such as national standards, experts at hands, looking at capping the private provision costs. In short, I trust our children's officers to respond to the consultation in the best interests of the children, having fully understood the needs, opportunities and risks in the system, as it is now and how it would be as a result of the proposed reforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dove.
Thank you. I've been listening to the debate. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I just need to think we need to just set aside some of the myth telling that's been going on tonight. So let's be clear, this legislation has been driven by local authorities rather than families, unlike the 2014 Children and Families Act, which was absolutely and completely, utterly co-produced by families, which is why it was good. It was why it could have met need. The system is not broken, the lack of accountability is. It's the slopey-shouldered unwillingness of finances and budgetary constraints, which is why children are not having their needs met currently. The HCP system is not adversarial. It's a system and the processes that councils have put in place. The lack of trust is simply because it's finance driven, nothing more, nothing less. It's not about whether families are receiving the provision that they should be. It's all driven by the fact that apparently we don't have enough money. Families don't wish to pursue EHCPs. They have to because legal rights are not being upheld when they are SEN registered alone. And this is the very right that the White Paper wished to remove. This new system is cruel, it's divisive, and it will pit families up against each other. Councillor Bartlett, sorry, I will quote, says that we should trust those within the system. But I'm going to be really honest, this is the same council that tried to bring in safety valve. This system is considered to be broken simply because it costs money. That's not right. We are writing off kids with huge potential simply because we've chosen to fund other projects rather than look at the most vulnerable children in our community and listen to their families, to the end users of this service, those who are petrified if these proposals are brought into place. So listen please to the lawyers out there. There's loads on the Law Gazette in terms of what the impact will be. Listen please to the end users of the service. Listen to those who are advocating to how ill-advised this white paper is, and listen to schools. The government are quite frankly trying to sell us a pup. £4 billion is an investment. That equates to between £100 to £200 per school. Are they really going to be able to put in sufficient support for 25% of the class, which will have additional needs, which will be wide varied as well? Individual support plans will meet little. These packages are not individualised. They're not designed to meet need. They won't legally protect anybody. They're off-the-shelf packages, whether they meet need or not. Do I agree with some of the wording of the motion? I really, really don't. There are many areas I think are wrong and they don't push for protections in the right place. But ultimately tonight, we have to send the right message to government. This simply is not quite good enough. And we have to send the right message to our families. We hear you. We know you're not happy. We know that you're scared. And for that reason and that reason alone, I will also be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. I have two more speakers before we go back to the vote. Councillor Cooper.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to say I feel quite proud here listening to the councillors that have spoken and how much we do care for the well-being of children, young people and their families. The motion is full of really good stuff, but it's just preempting the outcome of a national consultation. You know, the request for our MPs to write to themselves, really, because they're already consulting with families. Neil Duncan Jordan has regular forums with SEND families, and that's all going into the consultation. Tom, I think, is doing the same thing. I'm sure Vicky is for Poole, and I'm sure she is. I myself have worked for over 2.5 years with SEND families, and what they tell us and what they tell me is that the system is broken, and it is broken, and they're trying to navigate a really difficult landscape. And to fix that, sometimes, you know, if a car keeps breaking down, you can only fix the engine so many times before you have to send it to the scrapyard and start again. And I think it's a really difficult task for the Labour government to take that job on, but they are, whatever you think of some of the policies that they're bringing in, I think the SEND initiative is brave and it's really bold, and it will listen to the nation. And this council should not preempt the outcome of that and make itself look a little bit daft because we put something and we start demanding things and all this kind of stuff. The other thing is, I think it doesn't acknowledge, and it's already been hinted at, the incredible work that our officers have done. And they continue to do so under deep scrutiny. You know, we don't let them rest, really. They come and they get scrutinized, and they're working under immense pressure, and they've done a really, really good job. So I think we need to acknowledge that. Of course we need to do it. We need to improve our service. But first, let's put our energies into listening, engaging, and putting a considered collective response to the government in terms of our consultation. I'm sure we can do that, I think. I think most people in this room are capable of listening to their residents. I'm sure you are. So no matter how small or big your ideas or collection of consultations you can bring to the table, then do so. And put pressure on Neil, put pressure on Tom, put pressure on Jessica, put pressure on Vicky, because they are working really hard in Westminster to deliver a better deal for the children and young people and families of this conurbation. Thank you. Ta.
Councillor Trent, and then I'm going to ask Kate Salmon to come in.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very difficult situation, and I feel for all concerned. I'm a member of one of the two political parties that actually created the current system, but unfortunately it became a runaway train, and it's actually causing all sorts of nightmares. I will admit to be one of those people who was emailing the likes of Newsnight during the last general election campaign saying, why aren't you talking about this? Because it's a really important issue that they needed some discussion of. We have a situation where we've got some individual children costing £63,000 a year per child for SEND special needs. And it's not because it's necessarily that expensive a provision. The provision is private companies that are basically coining it in. And I actually applaud this government for dealing with it. It's difficult, and I think it's going to be really difficult to get the balance right between making the system work better and maintaining the good things that were in the current system. But it needs to be done. And for those who are sort of, you know, there's one speaker earlier on, I was tempted to say, well, do you want your council tax to double to pay for it? Because that's how serious it is if we ended up paying for it. There is at least something being done, and I really think that we need to work with the system, try to improve it where we can, but it really does need reforming, and it needs to be turned into something that works properly, and the runaway train needs to get back under control. So I basically I'm not comfortable with the motion, but you know, I do sort of welcome it actually being discussed, and I think our children's services overview and scrutiny is the place, and I agree with, I think it was Councillor Bartlett who said that. I agree with that being the place where it's discussed and looked at in detail with some proper information and backup.
Councillor Salmon, you have a
point of order 11.4.1. Can I give a personal explanation to one of the things that has been raised consistently in this debate, which is people saying, oh, can we just take a bit more time? Maybe children's ONS, can we just do a bit longer? The consultation for this process finishes on the 18th of May. Now, obviously, nobody on that side of the chamber has bothered to look at that. This is our only opportunity. We will not meet again as full council where we can discuss this. Children's ONS will not meet again where this can be discussed. The choice before you is so simple this evening. Are you prepared to stand up for families with SEND children? Are you prepared to say, this isn't saying we're opposed to reform, this is saying we want to set a minimum safeguard for what this reform can do to our children. That is it. That is a question in front of you. There is no kicking this down the road. You know, I know you guys would love a fence sitting, just like we did with E20, can we pretend we don't make a decision? But just as personal explanation, there is no other opportunity to vote on this as a council. I just want to say that. I will get off my soapbox now. I won't express my disappointment anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. So I'm taking that, Councillor Salmon, as you're summing up. But Councillor Kate Salmon, you reserved your right. So do you want to speak now before we go to the vote?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you can tell, Joe and we both feel really passionately about this, and I've listened to what everybody's got to say, and I do appreciate everybody's input and everybody's thoughts. But there's quite a lot been said about what this motion's trying to do that I don't think is really accurate. So we accept that reform is needed. This motion isn't about saying there's no need for reform. It's the current system needs improvement, absolutely it does, but enforceability of EHCPs is the one part of the current system that does work for families, and the reforms should be fixing the system, not removing the only mechanism that families have to secure support. The motion is asking us to respond along general theme of protecting those legal rights. We did consult with experts, with groups, local groups of who were involved in this to develop the motion. Rachel Filmer, who you heard a statement from earlier, she's a national voice on these issues, and Parent Carers Together, a local group that we did, we engaged with to put this together. It's setting out a general framework. It's not trying to tie our hands. It sets our values. Consultation is the time when we should be being clear about what we will and won't support as a council. If we wait until the legislation's final, we don't have any opportunity to feed into that. And I've also heard, we haven't consulted the right people, officers get to say what we should be doing. But we in this chamber, we set the political priorities for the council. The motion asks that we take the position that children's legal rights must be protected throughout SEND reforms. So I would argue that, I would ask you to think about, when this is about setting out a position as a local authority that we will, when we respond to the consultation as a local authority, we will make sure that we are not acquiescing to eroding the legal rights of children and families. And that's the purpose, plain and simple, of the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, both Councillor Salmons, or Councillors Salmon, I'm sorry. Right, members, can we go to the vote? I think we need to have a proper vote on this, please. Have we all voted, members? Thank you. Yes, I think that motion has fallen. Thank you. Right, members, we have another motion here from Councillor Salmon. Oh, I'm so sorry, Councillor Waters.
Thank you. Under Procedure Rule 1416, I'd like to call for an adjournment of today's meeting. I think we're missing a large amount of councillors at this point to allow for a decent scrutiny of the coming motions.
Can you just hold on a moment, Councillor Waters? Thank you. Members, we've looked at the Constitution long and hard. We can vote on this if you want to end this meeting and carry on at the next meeting or put one in the middle. Can you vote now? Agreed or not agreed? Right, that's agreed. Okay. Just wait for the Chief Executive to tell you something. Hang on. We just want Chief Executives.
Should I jump in?
Yes, please do.
Okay, if I, guys, if I could just jump in. So you've voted to adjourn the meeting. We're conscious that we're going into a pre-election period shortly. So this would take, so we won't be able to meet until after the election. The May council meeting is the annual meeting of the council. So we'll have to schedule a further meeting after the annual meeting. That said, I just need to draw your attention to item 16, which is urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive. I just want to quickly mention that since we last met as council, I have taken one urgent decision about which is the acceptance of a local transport consolidation fund. So this is a grant that we have been offered from government, which we've received. We had a short timeline, I had to accept it. The details are published on the website in accordance with all our rules. Other than that, back to you, Chair.
Thank you, members. So I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.